Boom.
Hey, BGD.
All right. Hey, we're live. Hey, BGD. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate you being here.
BGD, great to see you.
This is something completely different. The channel thus far has been role-playing games. I don't want to call them theories and philosophies, just discussions. It's been discussion on role-playing games. But Sable Phoenix and Doug both got a hold of me. What was it? Thursday? And you said that this would be a really, really great movie to just discuss, because I wanted Doug on the channel anyway. And Sable, I was going to extend an invite to you when a topic came up, but this is it was just a perfect storm. It was, you guys saw the movie. We were going to go see it the following day. Heath has no plans on discussing it, so I didn't feel like I was stepping on toes. Speaking of Heath, go, if you're watching this after the fact, or even if you're watching this now, go check out Heath's Geekverse, Table Talks in the Geekverse.
Yep.
Really awesome channel. He's the reason why I even started streaming, because he's very encouraging. It's a very, very great audience that he's assembled there. Doug is a regular. I'd go so far as to call Doug a co-host.
The last time they were on, Doug, you did an interview with Heath, actually. And
exactly.
And it was great.
That was a lot of fun.
It was great.
I was getting to know Heath a little bit more myself just through the discussion. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
You asked really great questions, and see, for that one, I would say you were the host for sure. That was your
for sure.
You owned that. That was awesome.
For sure.
So, first, thank you both for coming on to do this conversation.
Happy to do it.
I have a lot to say about it. I'm sure you both have a lot to say about it. I want to first give you both time to introduce yourself, though. So I guess, Sable, you're up top. We'll start with you.
Okay.
Just go in order from ascending to descending.
All right. I am nobody special. I am somebody who is a longtime science fiction fan, a longtime gamer, and I think we can actually tie this because Doug and I actually did, after we saw the movie, 2 RPGs. We talked about the world building of the Alien RPG and how it does a fantastic job in the RPG, and the movie was a missed opportunity in that respect.
Yes,
we can get into that later. So yeah, I am just a geek at heart. I came into contact with both of you guys through Heath's Geekverse after I found that channel during the whole OGL debacle a little over a year and a half ago now, and started being a regular attendee on Heath's live streams. And from all of that, many things have been birthed, and Bacon and I are actually working on a project or two together at the moment. Bacon has started streaming and doing his own YouTube videos, and obviously we met Doug through it, who is already previously published, and then actually launched his book, The Heroine's Labyrinth. The publishing party was streamed on Heath's channel, so. We're a YouTube family here.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and I'll just preface too. Me and Sable actually physically went to see Alien Romulus together.
That's right. We do live in the same general area now.
Yeah,
so hilarious the way that happened.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was the first time we were able to finally get together to do that, and I think both of us had higher hopes, I would say.
Yes.
True. So yeah, we'll get into the good and bad of this film here in just a second.
Yeah, but first, where are you from, Doug? What's up? I mean, I know, but I'm sure most people in the chat know. But for anyone who shows up later.
Yeah, I'm Douglas Burton. I'm from Chicago originally, but now I live in Austin. I should say Round Rock, Texas now, with my family, and spend all my time either being a family guy, writing, reading, and lately a lot of appearances on YouTube, which I'm really enjoying because I'm meeting so many like-minded people, and there's nothing like it, including obviously James and Sable are some of the OGs that I met online, and I've had such a rich experience, and the people I'm meeting, it's fascinating just how smart everyone is and how deep their love of either role playing or movies or comic books or franchises or literature. I mean, it's a pretty eclectic group, and and I've been just having the time of my life.
I've been trying to keep up with all the streams that you're on, but you are exploding, it would seem. You're all over the place. Like there was a week, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, where it was like every night you were on a different stream. And like I said, I tried to keep up as best I could, but I'm sure I missed a couple.
You do
But it's always fun to
my
see
friend.
you, to see your ideas hit new audiences, and you kind of have that opportunity to again to sort of like re-engage a new audience and just do what you do best. And I find that entertaining, and so I'll watch them as frequently as I can get a hold of them.
Well, and it's just fun to talk to other people about these things because prior to this, if it came to Alien Romulus, I'd find myself cornering somebody at work and be like, you don't understand, this doesn't work. And they're like, dude, I don't care.
I just wanted to drink water. Let me go.
The water,
I'm 911. I'm hostage at the water cooler.
Yeah. So now you go on the YouTube, people want to people will literally talk for hours and hours, and I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. So you had an idea when before we went live. You wanted us, or rather, you thought that it would be a good idea if we sort of explained how it is we first came in contact with the Alien franchise, and just sort of tell the story of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we started with Sable last time. We can start with you this time.
Well, for me, I was about 10 years old, and my family was pretty strict, so I was not allowed to watch rated R movies. But it was at a time when my parents were getting a divorce, so there was an opening to maybe put some pressure. So I convinced my dad to let me see Aliens, and I had not seen Alien. In fact, I didn't even know anything about it. My dad simply mentioned in passing that there was another movie from the 70s that this is the sequel to. But in 1986, and this might have been even 1987 because I saw it on video. Aliens was still a pretty big buzz. I remember seeing the trailer, and as my child mind remembers, a lot of strobe lights and flashing, and it looked really intense, and it kind of blew me away, just the trailer. So I finally got to see Aliens. I must have been 10 or 11, and it scared the absolute shit out of me. Like I was freaked the F out because I never saw anything like it. And this wasn't like creepy jump scares. This was like in your face terror. And Aliens blew me away, and it lodged itself in my head ever since. I started drawing them. I bought the comic books.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of the comic books.
Dark Horse?
I read all these.
Oh yeah, Colonial
Yeah,
Marines is one of my
War.
favorite all-time comic series.
Yeah, I loved it. And Newt, and they did it right. Newt was like in the follow-up, she was like 18 and 19 and hot, and the Colonial Marines were still in the story, and then there was Earth War, and I couldn't get enough. So in 1992, Alien 3 came out, and I did not know this was going to become a tradition. But my love of aliens took me out to the theaters to see yet another Aliens movie, and I just felt let down. In the first couple minutes of that movie, they killed Hicks and Newt, and I will never forgive them for that. And it affected my rankings because we discussed ranking all the Aliens movies sans AVP. We're not going to include those. So that's really how I got into it.
Or Covenant. We can probably talk about those a little bit, but as far as the
we kind of have to.
Yeah. I think those are much more like adjacent, like in the room, adjacent.
Well, like Megan said, they're prequels essentially. If they're in the canon, quote unquote, at all, they're prequels, so they don't count.
Right.
But they are referenced, unfortunately, like I said.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't mean to derail, Doug. I'm sorry, you were in the middle.
Oh no, that's okay. That's how I got into it. I came into it watching Aliens, and it just blew me away. And so for several years, all that existed was the movie Aliens for me. And I never saw Alien until I was in my 20s, I think. I was like, I'm going to go see it. It looked dated. Even then, I thought in my mind, I was like, that looks dated. I don't know. But I watched it, and I was like, holy cow. Mm-hmm. It's like a whole different film. And it really shocked me that it wasn't even the same genre, even though it was the same kind of creatures. And I've watched Alien and Aliens multiple times, and every time it came out with a new edition or a director's cut or 4K, I just jumped on it, and just relive the experience. So for me, those first two movies are not just good film, like the best of the franchise. Aliens is one of my top 3 favorite movies all time.
Aliens with an S.
Aliens with an S. So
Gotcha.
I would say it's probably number 2. I think Empire Strikes Back is my all-time favorite movie, followed by Aliens, and then my third favorite is Amadeus. Believe it or not. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this franchise.
Awesome. Sable, how'd you get involved with it, or how did it, reveal itself to you?
It's so prosaic.
It's okay.
I was raised in a family where we didn't even have a television for most of my early life, which I actually appreciate because I spent all that time reading. But once we eventually did get a television, all we had were the rabbit ears. We didn't have actual cable or anything like that, but we did have a VHS player. And so I was introduced to Alien via, I believe, it would have been around the time that not the Force Awakens, holy crap. It had been about the time that the Phantom Menace came out, where I really got introduced to online fan communities because I was introduced to Star Wars through VHS as well. And I vividly remember, that's a whole nother stream. We're not going to get into that. But I was huge into the Star Wars fandom at that time, which was all on message boards. And the Force Awakens, or the what was it called? The Force TFN, the Force Network, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. TFN was the big like fan site for like discussion, right? For the Star Wars fan base, and that's where everybody posted their crappy little 420 by 280 recordings of their fan films and all the other stuff. Anyway, somehow I got from there to the Anchor Point Essays, which is a fan-based website that just analyzes the alien films and the xenomorph as a life form and their reproductive cycle and their biology and all that kind of stuff. Is very geeky, very nerdy. And I was just fascinated. So at about, I don't know, late teens, early 20s, when I'm in college and my parents both have their own jobs, and so we're in and out of the house at different times, and I can go and I have access to the car, and I can go to Blockbuster Video and I go ahead and I rent Alien, and I watch it. I watch Alien some Saturday, probably it was a Saturday morning, I guess.
You watched Alien?
Oh, Alien, the first movie.
Okay.
Okay. I guess backtracking, my actual introduction to Aliens, the franchise, was back in the 80s with all the toy commercials, which we talked about a little bit, Doug. How did they sell this to kids when the Aliens came out in 83 or whatever it was? And their commercials for, Colonial Marines, fight the aliens. Oh, there's the Hive Guard, and there's the Praetorian, and blah blah blah, and there's the Gorilla Alien, and yada yada, and all this crazy stuff. You saw those commercials on. My brother and I saw those commercials on my grandmother's cable television all the time, and I was like, "What is this?" I had no idea it was advertising toys for an R-rated film. But
that's Kenner.
Yeah, that's Kenner.
Alien, Terminator, they did a whole lot of that.
Yeah, they did the Terminators one too, although Terminator had fallen off a little bit by that point.
They were building demand for when we turn 30.
I guess.
Buy all the $300 version.
Yep, for sure.
Except now we go to like the boutique statue, except then, we have expendable income. We go to the boutique statue places and get the full on, 1/64th scale or whatever. But, but regardless, anyway, I went ahead and rented the first movie, watched it alone sitting on the floor, watching it on the VHS, and was absolutely enthralled because, like, Alien is one of the greatest films ever made. And everything about it, except for the one scene with the hard cut between the prosthetic head and going back to Ian Holmes' face, everything about it holds up to this day flawlessly. not only that, but just as far as the craft of filmmaking goes, it is just about as close to a perfect film as you can get. And especially for the horror genre, which is not something I was ever a fan of until I watched Alien.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah,
in fact, it's funny that you
and I
bring up
still don't really care for horror movies in general, especially slasher films like the Saw series. Gag. Or even stuff like the Halloween series. Like, you can take it or leave it. I mean, and there's another franchise that has gone downhill as they keep making movies. But anyway, that's another stream, another subject. But regardless, as far as not just a film, but also as a work of horror, I would say Alien was my introduction to the genre as far as appreciating it as something that is a valid storytelling medium or a mode of storytelling, I guess you could say.
This was the perfect direction to go in, because not only am I going to bring up Kenner and the Aliens line as sort of my introduction, but Alien is what kind of mollified me to horror as a genre.
Yes.
And that story is that when I was extremely young, my parents were going out to do something. I don't know, it was date night or whatever. When they went out, they left me with my grandparents for the evening. So I was going to spend the night at my grandparents, who were early to bed. So they went to bed early, and USA Network was still a thing. I don't know if it is to this day. It might be. And John Carpenter's Thing was on late night, and I was not ready to go to sleep. So I turned on USA Network, and I thought it looked pretty fun to watch. I absolutely lost my mind. I didn't go to sleep for the next 3 or 4 days, and it ruined me for horror to this day, really. Like, there are horror movies that I just will not go see because I have that sort of that young aged scarring that really just kind of robbed that from me. Not that it was anyone's fault. I did it myself. But then later on, when Kenner started to release the Alien, and so this is something that I wouldn't necessarily had on my radar because I just was not a horror guy. Nope, I had seen it, I had been there, I was not interested in it whatsoever. And so I went to KB at the mall like I had in the past, and I think that that's KB Toys for anyone who doesn't know. And they had the Kenner line with the bull alien and the gorilla alien, the mantis alien, scorpion alien. And so I loved the toys, and I bought several of the toys. The gorilla alien was the first one I bought. I love the metallic blue. I still have it. And so I started to read these comics because they all came with mini comics. This was an era in toy manufacture when they would try to sort of incorporate a story into the toys. And so I was very interested in all that stuff from Kenner, and then eventually I saw Aliens. Can't tell you how old I was. I can't tell you when exactly I saw the movie. I can tell you it was in the 80s. I know that. But after I went to see Aliens, which was mostly an action movie,
Mostly.
I was really cool with it. Was like, it was an action movie with some some cheap thrill scares. And that kind of brought me into the franchise because otherwise, if it weren't for Kenner's toy line, funny enough that we kind of, well, I say we, but there was a lot of criticism for Kenner in making R-rated properties and toys.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, totally bizarre, really weird choice. But I mean, it seems to have worked. Maybe they did Predator, they did Alien, they did Terminator. I'm sure there's several others that I just can't think of at the moment. But I was able to buy in, based on the toys. And after I saw Aliens, I saw Alien, and I have to turn my camera off just briefly, but I'll still be able to talk here.
Okay.
No worries.
So Candace is passing behind me. So that's kind of how I got invested in the franchise. Only later did I see Alien, and I saw Alien after I had seen Spaceballs, and then John Hurt, right? And I'm sitting there, and my mom thought it was hysterical, and my dad thought it was hysterical. I'm like, why is this scene so funny? And Yes, Junfuz's correct. They did RoboCop as well. Yep, absolutely.
They did.
What's
Oh, yeah,
up?
right. They did. I remember the RoboCop toys too, for sure.
And so I can turn my camera back on now. So like the fact that I didn't really know where that scene came from, like, why is that so funny? He's doing the Michigan J Frog dance, like it's hysterical. So I needed to find out where that came from. And my parents told me it's from the original. It's from Alien. It's the same guy. It's John Hurt. So then I was able to take a look at Alien and sort of, and that was definitely not an action movie. It was very intentionally paced, and it was plotting and sort of slow. I mean, in the era of that sort of film, it was a little slower. Because it was very deliberate with the reveal. It was very intentional with the pacing. It built its tension very effectively. And so because I was already invested, it sort of it enabled me to like overcome that fear, genuine fear of horror movies. And I would say that Alien to this day is likely, I would put it in my top 3 for sure. What would I put it up there with? I don't know. Jaws might be up there.
Jaws is one of the best.
And then I don't know. I really have to genuinely sit down and think about what my next one is. But Alien is for sure up there. It's just one of those films. It's not even lightning in a bottle, right? It's just the intent. Well, I guess maybe it kind of is. But
it kind of is, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just. Everything is so deliberate and so well crafted. And so like even the way that they created the set, and while Doug, you mentioned that it kind of looks dated, and it does, but I think that is really important to the fabric of the film, because we're watching it like 40 years later and it still looks good. And B, it's a little bit more sensical to bring mechanical systems into deep space with you than it is electronic systems. Because if mechanical systems fail, you can manually operate them. If the electronic systems fail, you are screwed. So and there are obviously there are electronic systems in the Nostromo all over the place, but it's very like they're sort of mechanical. They control the mechanical elements of the ship. And so for that reason, I think Alien really has a timeless look. I think that Alien is going to look just as good 10, 20, 30 years from now as it does today, 40, 45 years from when it first came out.
I just want to clarify too. I don't think Alien looks that dated.
No,
what I was trying to say is when I was a kid, after having seen Aliens, my dad's like, you should see Alien. And I was like, so in my child brain, it sounded like an old movie. So I just never went after it until later. And then I was like, and then when you settle into the movie, you're like, it's very, the ship is heavy. It's not dogfighting. Yes. It opens up and space is like stark and scary and alien and foreboding. And you just settle in. And like you said, it sneaks up on you. It just kind of builds these layers and layers. And then when you leave, you're like, oh my God, what a film.
And
I think that
I didn't mean to pin that on you. Like, I wasn't trying to pin that opinion on you that you thought it looked dated. I, in the moment, understood what you were telling me as you saw it as a kid. And so I was a little bit hasty in pinning that.
No worries.
That's not what I was trying to do. So
no. Yeah, I think I think we both understood that, and I think the audience does as well, because, as I mentioned, the first film is timeless. Like you said, not only in its design but in its execution, it is going to hold up forever. And because it's all practical, because it's all analog, and because, as you were just saying, I think jumping forward, jumping forward now 40 whatever years to The Expanse. That excellent science fiction series. They specifically said that they treated space as a character, and space always wants to kill you. It's actively trying to kill you at every moment. And
they did that with the movie Everest. They're like, the mountain always wins. So when you're watching
make the environment a character.
Yes. Exactly. So it's a great strategy.
And they did that in Alien very subtly, but they did it. And those stark, bleak, empty opening shots with just the spaceship hanging in front of these gigantic planets, but in the distance, small, tiny,
Yeah.
immediately starts building that feeling to you. And every environment they go into outside of the ship itself is hostile. They cannot survive without a spacesuit, right?
Oh, totally. And you know, we talk about hero's journey, and we discussed this. There's a great scene in Alien, because there are some Heroine's Labyrinth elements in it, but I try to point out where the hero's journey. And there's a great one. There's a threshold moment where they've already landed on the planet. It's kind of a rough landing, and Dallas and Lambert and Kane are. Is it Dallas, Lambert, and Kane? Yeah, they're in their spacesuits, and the doors open up, and it's like this totally chaotic, like metallic silica spraying around. There's a siren spinning, and I was like, "Whoa, what a
there's a big contrast."
This like peaceful antechamber to this like totally harsh world that you do not want to step out there. I was like,
and the way that they handle it, the way that those characters handle it, it's just like another day at the job. This is totally unsurprising.
Blue collar.
Yeah. Really fantastic.
We're building better worlds. We're going to the places where nobody is yet.
Yeah. And you know, just to add another layer, we've all read. It sounds like some of the comic books. I've even read. There's a dramatization on Audible, and I actually recommend this to any Aliens fans. They took the old script that was rejected for Alien 3, and they dramatized it.
The one with the wooden planet.
Wooden planet?
Yeah, the original idea, the original concept for Alien 3 was that it was going to take place on a wooden Luddite space station.
It was supposed to be like a temple of some sort, I think.
It was a wooden space station inhabited entirely by an ascetic monk order.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Victor has actually completely he's alienated, to use a term. He's alienated this film. He absolutely denounces it because of how the production process continued to fight him the whole way through getting this film made. He started with a completely different script. They kept chopping the budget out from under him. It was a struggle for him to complete this movie. So it didn't look like what he had originally envisioned.
We could talk about it after the analysis of Romulus, but everyone here is pretty much a role player. And I don't know how many people have read or owned the core.
Hold on. What's role playing? Just kidding.
That's a whole different stream.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah, so I have the core rule book for the Alien RPG from Free League Publishing.
Yep.
And when I had COVID, I spent my time reading the Alien core rule book just because it was so effing fun. I love the artwork in it.
It's really good.
And the real crime, and Romulus continues this crime. The world building for Alien, the alien world, the universe, all the nations and factions and groups is actually pretty enormous. It's a big universe. There's a lot of players out there. And none of these movies ever gets beyond a single setting with Weyland-Yutani in the background.
To tie this in, I think finally to the topic at hand, one of the biggest mystiques that Romulus had generated for me coming out of that theater was when we were planetside.
Yes.
And we were looking at essentially Blade Runner on the ground, right?
Yep.
So we were in the Blade Runner. He took all the form language from Blade Runner, married it into this Aliens film to sort of reinforce Ridley Scott's original vision that the universes are taking place simultaneously.
Yes.
Right.
I absolutely loved that. I loved the boxy nature of all those giant four-wheelers with the Weyland-Yutani. I loved every last second of that. And then we launched off the planet. We're never going to see it again. And it's like, for an alien movie, I think that's okay because it's not really about the world. And I think that it's okay to sort of tip your hat a little bit toward what is happening in the world and the way it looks and how things are sort of programmed. But I'm okay with sort of backing off from that and leaving those speculative elements for us to sort of kick around, because I love I love the speculation. Like, we have no idea where this planet was. We have no idea how far from Earth it is. We have no idea, like, we have none of that information whatsoever. We know it's a mining colony, and that's really it. Oh, I'm sorry. Heavy spoilers, guys. This is going to be a very, very heavy spoiler stream. I did put it in the description. It is not in the title. Hopefully, we've given you enough lead in to be able to say spoilers. We've literally only discussed the first moments of the film at this point.
Right. From here on out.
But from here on out, if you don't want to be exposed to spoilers, and my apologies for not announcing this sooner, we are absolutely getting into the minutia of this film.
You now have 5 seconds to reach minimum safe distance.
Yes. You may, if you don't want spoilers, nuke the stream from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
All right, here we go. Yeah, no, hey,
RPG Exile, I apologize. Thank you for attending.
Yeah,
we'll give everyone a couple more minutes to sort of process, to see whether or not they want to stick around. We're a half hour in. I apologize for not announcing it earlier, but this is going to be spoiler heavy. Again, we've only reviewed the first couple of minutes of the film. We haven't gotten into any characters, any of the events, just sort of the look of how things were planet side. I'm going to give you all a little bit more time to file out if you do not want to be exposed to those spoilers. And again, I apologize for not announcing it sooner. It should have been kind of right off the top. I might periodically remind chat, just in case people come in like halfway through, hour and 45 minutes through, depending on how long this goes. I will let them all know periodically we're going to be discussing spoilers. So,
well, and just to buy a few extra seconds here and to piggyback off what you said, for a brief while, I actually felt thrilled when they set up the world on that mining planet. Like you
completely
said,
agree. Completely agree.
There was a Blade Runner vibe. Like, I was looking around in the background. It was real. It wasn't CGI. There was the bar. There was a lot of people, and I was just kind of like, oh, a world to explore. And I was excited about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to kind of jump on what you were saying and agree with you that there was a moment when the film settled in that I was like, I haven't felt like this in a long time, where I was excited to be on this other world.
And that's literally not a spoiler, because it is the first minutes of the film.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's
so up to this point, there have been no spoilers.
It's
just been aesthetics. But from here on out, and I'll remind you again. So I think we've given people enough time to file out if they needed to. Again, RPG Exile, I deeply apologize, but it is going to be heavy spoilers from this point forward, and I will periodically remind people so that if they do happen to stumble in, they don't get blindsided.
But it's literally only the first minutes of the film. I think it's about 10 minutes we spend on the planet, and 3 or 4 of those are right in their little apartment or whatever the heck it is.
Well, and
they even lift off the planet.
And they had a good bureaucratic moment.
We're going to talk about that too.
Yeah, she's built up enough hours. She's going to leave, and Weyland-Yutani doubles the threshold, like on the spot. I almost wanted more. I wanted even if they just added another 100 hours, and she says something like, "You did this to me last month" or something. Whatever. I don't want to get too nitpicky on it, but it was a bureaucratic exchange, and she's on the short end of it, and I thought that was pretty decent. I really thought they had something brewing there. I was pretty excited to get settled in when they. But
even within that bureaucracy, that little sort of window that we saw, the exchange was, "Where are your parents? Oh, we've doubled your time." So it's like, we can't get in trouble for doing this. We're actually going to work you to death. So I think that it makes Weyland-Yutani even that much more oppressive of an entity, because her parents are gone, and it's very apparent that, at least it was in my viewing, it was very apparent that the reason that her time was doubled is because what is she going to do about it?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because her parents aren't there, like there's no one there to protest. It's just going to be like, well, we own you now.
And she doesn't. She kind of turns around and accepts her fate.
Yeah. Yep.
And that could have been a stronger introduction to the character, honestly. And Doug mentioned this as well after we left the theater. it might have been better if they'd been like, instead of just like, oh, it's now 20,000 hours instead of 10,000 or whatever the heck, and you just got to do it, and she just turns around and walks away. Instead, it could have been like, oh, there's another 1,000 hours, and she's like protests, like you said, you did this to me the last time or whatever. That would have been great. And then, well, we can't handle that here. Go down to the office of whatever else down this way and put in a complaint with them, and just have her going through the red tape.
That's the Akira Kurosawa bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. Or the make it Kafka-esque, right? Just it's not so much that it would have made it even more oppressive, just because it wouldn't be so much like a focused, inimical, almost an intentional evil, and more of just the overwhelming bureaucracy is like, hey, there are cogs moving and you're just part of the cogs,
Yeah, there's no way
to
penetrate the bureaucracy.
You're
exactly.
Machine. You got
They're penetrating the bureaucracy. There's no way to penetrate the bureaucracy, right? It's just this constantly churning corporate machine that you can't get through. Well, and I think that might have been an even stronger way to do it.
Well, and I did like the idea of wanting to escape this clearly oppressive environment I think where the movie began where I started to struggle was the introduction of the characters. So I heard this pitched like loosely as Gen Z in space, right? And Aliens and Alien are both blue collar films. In fact, Alien was pitched as truckers in space.
Yeah,
truckers in space. Everyone knows that. That's a blue collar job, and we. Even as a kid, when I watched it, it still resonated with me. I understood that. I come from a blue collar family,
there's kind of a certain. Just to interject real quick, this is something that came to me after we talked about it, leaving the theater. There is a certain glamour to truckers, right? Like the big rig comes down the road and how many kids don't think that they want to be the guy pulling that horn on the head of this big road train, so even though it is blue collar and working class and drudgery, or if you want to think of it that way, there's still a certain kind of a glamour to it.
It's also freedom and security, right?
And there's that.
I don't like
you're kind of out on your own.
To be moved, and they will always have to be moved across land.
My dad was
be able to if you own your own trucking company, obviously it's a little bit higher on the chain than freedom is, but the ability to, as long as you hit your schedule, you can take whatever route you want, you can stop wherever you want, you are responsible for your own meals, your own breaks, you're just kind of driving, so you can listen to whatever audio books or whatever you have or want to bring with you. There are some people who have like you could see the back of their cab, and they have televisions rigged up with satellite television or a game system. Like, it's literally just however you want to do it, as long as you're meeting your deadline. And so there's definitely a large freedom element to that as well.
My dad was a long haul trucker for several years. And he described it as, I've got a private office with an ever changing view.
That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. I don't say blue collar in a negative sense. I'm just saying that was part of the character of Alien. And I would argue Aliens, the Colonial Marines.
For sure.
Those are your blue collar. They're soldiers. They're blue collar soldiers, and the white collar guy Burke was the villain, and the upper blue collar guy Gorman also had some problems. So he was the officer class. So I guess my issue was, or one of my issues was, Gen Z and blue collar did not go together for me in my head. It could, but they all had perfect complexions. And I was like, America's not quite as blue collar as it was in the 80s, for example.
See, and I didn't have it pitched to me that way when I first went into the film. So maybe I have that different perspective. I didn't really tag them for Gen Z. I just thought it was they were just like Sable said, they were kind of cogs in a machine, and they realized that there's no use. It's totally futile to kind of cause a dust up. So when you go, to approach the bureaucracy and they say, well, your time's been doubled, you literally just go, well, shit, I guess my time's been doubled. You turn around, you leave, because what else are you going to do, right? Like they literally, it's a company town. It's a mining facility. They are literally responsible for everything. They're responsible for transport off planet. Unless you have your own ship, but they're responsible for probably all of the police forces, like all of the detention, all of that sort of stuff. So like if there's a dust up that you cause, chances are you're going to have a very bad time. And so they've learned that. And I didn't have it pitched to me like it's Gen Z in space. So I didn't necessarily go in there with that perspective. And I feel like that it worked. I feel like that it worked.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Just me. That's just me.
Well, and so I guess also what I was thinking was for blue collar, I don't. So if it's framed even in world in the story itself as blue collar, they were all kind of hanging out in an apartment together, like you like in the modern sense, like there's a certain level of freedom and lack of supervision for them, and they had like I said, their skin was clean, like they didn't even have smudges on them in some cases from dirty work, and I just was having trouble seeing that group like the world was clearly established strongly, but the characters seemed to be kind of slightly apart from it. And I think that bothered me a little bit. I wanted to see them in the mines. I want to see them dealing with the hierarchy that they're in. I want to see how difficult their lives are. I want to see what it's doing to them physically, the physical toll it's taking on them, why they look so bad. I'd like to see them look, like this is a tough world. And it was more like, we live on this tough world, but we're mostly healthy young adults. And we live in this apartment where we drink beer and hang out. And I was like, that's not, it just seemed a little disconnected for me.
That's reasonable. I think that's a perfectly reasonable take. And, for all we know, Alvarez could have had all of that filmed, and it just was a matter of killing his darlings because there's just not enough time to get that through. But I 100% agree that I personally would have loved to have seen more planet side scenes. I thought that the form language was fantastic. I thought that the bureaucracy was very interesting. I thought seeing the interactions between just the regular people would have been really great. Like, where did they go to eat? Like just the silly, mundane things that are just kind of attributed to world building and also probably time wasting. But I would have loved to have seen that.
Well,
so
I
agree with you.
I don't think they're mundane. I think that's world building.
It's the whole that, and we talked about this, Doug and I, after the theater, is that one of the in the original Alien, it sets up this atmosphere of slowly building dread from the very opening title. Literally, the opening title is with those.
You establish normalcy to break it later, for sure. Yes.
Well, but I mean, even it's like from the opening title, it's like first off, these glyphs come on the screen, just these white bars, right? And you're like, what is this? And then it slowly starts filling in piece by piece until it shows the time. And it takes what, a minute and a half for them to even.
It's a very long intro.
Just to reveal the opening title of Alien, the word, to make it make sense, right? And it establishes the sense of mystery and dread from the start. And the only time in the entire film where you don't have that atmosphere is after they wake up and they're all at breakfast, and they're all just.
And it's normalcy.
It's normalcy.
Totally normal.
It's camaraderie. They're all complaining about their lot in life. They're all talking about blue collar stuff. They're all kibitzing and carping at each other and making jokes and teasing and whatever else. And there's obviously people who've worked together for a long time, and you're in the middle of it and you're part of it. And it's like, hey, this is just everyday work a day, normal people who know each other, and actually they may not be family per se, but they care about each other, at least in a professional capacity, and they know how to work together.
But you're also
you establish, you're getting a read.
You get a read on who the relationships,
exactly. You're also you're establishing the characters as well, which is super important.
Yeah, like
And
you get
we don't
Parker's
have-
the one who's outspoken. He
Yeah.
doesn't like the share situation.
He's
you know?
brash. He's up front. He doesn't have a problem.
Rubber
confronting
stamps
authority.
whatever he says. Dallas
Right.
tells him to knock it off. He's the adult in the room. Like you actually are getting a ton of information.
And Kane is the second in command, but he's not really in charge. You know, like he's the one who wants to be in charge and jumps out in front every time, which is what gets him killed. You know, yada yada yada. Like they establish all of these characters, and they didn't have a breakfast scene in.
No,
in
I agree
Romulus.
with you, but I think that the fact that this all takes place over a single meal, the fact that we really get a read on each one of the characters individually over a single meal is it's a struggling art kind of in modern day filmmaking.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone wants to spell everything out and tell you things exactly and correctly. I really feel like I just don't feel like we're going to get that, because I think that with the nature of overproduction these days, it's just people don't trust the audience. People used to trust the audience. That's no longer the case, and so
which is a shame, because
it's a real big shame for sure.
The audience is just as smart and will follow. I mean, go look at Top Gun Maverick. I mean, that one was a huge hit, and there's plenty of low key, inexplicit storytelling.
Right?
Or, yeah.
When they're playing pool, you get a sense that there's a little bit, Glenn Powell's characters, the D head who's coming in and gonna push everybody around.
Okay. You need that establishing scene where all the characters come together and they bounce off of each other, and you get an idea of who their personalities are. But even then, like the more low key storytelling, when Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer are in the same scene together, is like you have the weight of history in that interaction. We don't need to be told what it is, right? They are playing off of that weight of history as characters with each other, and you get it as an audience. So anyway,
there are some interactions that we get in the opening moments of the film. Like, we know who the jerk is.
A couple.
We know, we know who the jerk is. We know about, and again,
we know that Sky and Kay have a
point,
real close relationship.
Yeah. I'm going to repeat at this point in the stream, heavy spoilers. We're going to be discussing heavy spoilers. But, there's the pregnant girl. There's the main character, who I'm going to call the main character. And that's something that I want to talk about. I feel like, and I think we kind of mentioned this behind the scenes a little bit when we first convened to start the stream, that it's very much in danger of doing the Force Awakens thing, where it just is a sort of repeat of A New Hope, where this movie was in danger of just being a repeat of Alien. But I feel like it did enough different that it falls on the safe side, and it doesn't quite cross the line. One of those things that it did was it kind of split Ripley's character in two. We got the leader in the main character, whose name I don't remember.
Sky.
I don't remember either.
And also we get the mother aspect of Ripley in the pregnant female. And so
it was, I think, Kay. It's Sky is a lead character.
Okay, Sky and Kay.
So, pregnant girl, I believe, is Kay, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the IMDb.
And I can't remember anybody else's character name other than Andy. And then Rook, but he's just Ash.
I can remember Andy and Rook too, and we'll get to Andy and Rook.
Oh, man, we'll get to Rook.
I think that the film really did effectively sort of split that Ripley's character into those two personages. I think that it was very apparent that that's what was happening. It was something that I keyed into very early in the film, but it's also effective because they are their own well-rounded characters. It's not they're not just relying on what came before. So
at least
I say they, I mean
characters,
right? So it's very effective in that regard. And to be very honest with you, like, the whole mother aspect doesn't come in until a little bit later, and we'll get there. But just to say that, I think it's effective. So, like, knowing that Sky and Kay are supposed to be representative of the different aspects of Ripley's characters from Alien and Aliens. We also know who the jerk is. Andy is very vulnerable, and he is very sympathetic, so we like him. So there is a sort of establishment, but it is not nearly as strong as it is in Alien. Like, it's the characterization,
because it's done piecemeal.
it's piecemeal, and the characterization, it's very
surface level.
it's sort of nebulous. It's like this guy's the jerk instead of
Well,
like
you-
very specifically
each
showing why he's a jerk.
each character has one character trait, and that is their character.
Well, and you said it, Bacon. You're like, she's the pregnant one.
Yeah.
That's not a character.
No.
That's just a
That's a
status for that character, but we don't know. And she never really got beyond she's the pregnant one. And lo and behold, it tied into the plot line. So she's pregnant, and the pregnancy is part of the plot. So it's like she's just a vehicle for this plot device at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, yes. At this point, and in fact, in most of her appearance in the film, that's what she is and it's like, but it's done in an interesting way, right? So like when and I'm going to sort of fast forward a bit, but we can come back to it when we get there. When the first chest burster, it's the only chest burster, when the chest burster emerges from, again, a character's name I don't remember, but you know who I'm talking about. When the first chest burster emerges, right? Kay is holding her, right? And so the chest burster comes out. So that's a motherly role. She's sort of providing comfort to the character.
that's a good,
At the same time, the alien is emerging. And so this, I believe, foreshadows what happens later in the film. So it's done in a clever way, right? But it's still not, it's not quite getting there. And so this is a case where the audience is being trusted for sure. But it's also sort of a case where I think they might have punted the exposition a little bit, or the visual description of what's actually going on here.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I took it. I took it as, she's the mother. Like, as soon as you find out she's pregnant, you know exactly where this is going to go, because Ridley Scott will not get out of this mindset of having to one up the xenomorph, which we don't need, Ridley.
We don't need
ever
it.
see this. We don't need. It's like you can just fall back on the xenomorph every time.
Yep.
We do not need you to try and do a hybrid with humans. We do not need you to try and one up it. It is an extremely iconic, effective monster. Rely on it.
It is the greatest movie monster of all time on its own. You cannot one up it.
I actually thought the film did fairly well with the chest burster sequence. She has that light she holds up, and you see her ribs, and you see it moving.
Yep.
We all know what's going to happen, so it's really hard to take out. You're not going to surprise us anymore, right? We're not going to be surprised. So what they did was they just gave us another look at it from the inside.
Yep.
And she started frothing, and we kind of knew what was going to happen. And I actually kind of liked it because it came out slow. It was coming out, and then when it slowly comes out of her chest, and I was like, oh, that's a little creepy. That's different. So it wasn't the shock value. It was the horror value of it. And I thought that was a good move on their part to do that.
So why don't we do this then? Because there are good parts. I don't think any of us actually liked it as an Alien film.
I didn't not like it, right? So there's a lot there to like, and I think if they would have just chopped off the last 15 minutes and just abruptly ended it, it would have been a lot better.
So
it would have been a cleaner ending. It would have been much more satisfying as an Alien film. We did not need that last 15 minutes, even though there are some really smart shots in that last 15 minutes. It's like it just is unnecessary. It's just unnecessary. We didn't need it. Stop it. Stop.
Right.
Well, especially because it's so directly tied to Prometheus and the whole transhuman thing. The whole transhuman thing that Ridley Scott's been on is like, okay, whatever. That's not what Alien is about. I'm sorry, Ridley. I know you created the franchise, but that's not what it's about. You're wrong.
Right. I said Ridley earlier. It's like, not to be disrespectful, Mr. Scott and all that. Good God knows that when he is on creating, genres, and absolutely, he is either very on or very off. He's either reaching or setting the benchmark, or he is just flailing
way off.
Yeah,
and we're not trying to take anything away from his work.
No, absolutely not.
Obviously,
a whole bunch of respect goes to this dude, and
he's obviously a phenomenal director.
I am very happy to allow him to fail with Napoleon, because when he's on, he's very, very on. And I know I've said this before.
He's the girl with the curl. He's the girl with the curl in the middle of her forehead. When he's good, he's very, very good, and when he's bad, he's horrid. But again, we're critiquing this film only. not a body of work per se. However,
Right.
it does relate to a previous body of work, so we can't analyze it in a vacuum. And I think that's actually one of its that's actually one of the things that cuts the knees out from under it.
Yeah,
But
I almost got the impression that it was a condition or a very stern request to tie this into Prometheus.
It was, from what I've heard, it actually was a requirement by the studio.
I thought Ridley Scott was EP on this, right?
Ridley Scott,
So I mean,
Ridley Scott was EP, and the studio had the directive handed down to Fede Alvarez, Fede Alvarez, that it has to tie into Prometheus and Covenant, the prequels. So he was forced to include the black goo and references to engineers and all that junk.
I was, and this is likely because I maybe only got 15 minutes into Prometheus and I did not watch Covenant. And I discontinued watching Prometheus because of how obnoxiously bored I was in the first 15 minutes. I didn't so much mind the black goo in this film. I thought that it was an interesting bit of pushing the narrative forward in the universe. But I was very well aware of what people were sort of marrying that up to from Prometheus and from Covenant. And so I get the issue with that, with the,
Well, the black goo could have been interesting if it was kind of like a DNA-ish, like a stem cell version of DNA, something that has this rapid evolutionary quality. They made it more like the engineers were designing it or something. And I don't know. I felt like they had something, and then it just slipped through their fingers in Prometheus. They didn't land it. They didn't nail it.
Can I propose the way we go forward from here? Or
sure.
Why don't we go through and do a round robin and rank the film?
Oh yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Rank the film as where we personally would each put it in the pantheon of the 5 now. Let's say there are 5 Alien films. Then we can go and kind of round robin on all the good and the stuff we've already talked about, some of the good stuff that we enjoyed, and there are some outstanding parts of this film, to be fair.
Oh, sure. I think it nailed its tension. It built its tension, and I think it was very effective in that regard. But I think that we can do that here.
And then after that, we can go through and talk about the bad and how we would fix it.
Okay.
Because Doug and I in the parking lot, we fixed the film after we watched it.
Yeah, we started brainstorming.
That always makes for a good conversation,
right?
Candace and I actually had that exact same conversation. We came out of the movie theater, and it was like, well,
how do we fix
change this and this and this and this? Yeah.
Yep. So that's what we need to end on for sure. But we can talk about the good. Maybe we can go through and give a brief summary of the film as well, and use that to talk about the good parts, because there are good parts throughout, I think.
Yeah, there's plenty of positive.
Just do a little round robin on that, and then we can just go whole hog and just let's fix it.
Yeah, sure. Well, since you are the one suggesting that we start with our ranking,
okay.
You just volunteered yourself, so you go ahead and start first.
I've been voluntold. Okay.
And then at this point, I'd like to again. Oh, thank you, Mike. I'd like to again let people know: heavy spoilers, heavy spoilers, heavy spoilers. If you're going to see the movie and you don't want it spoiled for you, I would please ask that you watch the stream after you've seen the movie, because there are no holds barred here.
Although I will say that. If you watch this stream before you watch the movie, maybe we'll save you 2 hours of your life. So
it's possible. I mean, I don't know. I still think the movie's worth seeing. I don't know if
it is.
Theater.
That's the thing.
Maybe you leave 15 minutes before the end. But
like BGD talked about Alien 3 in the chat a little while back, and it's Alien 3 on its own, if it was a standalone film, would be a fine film, because there's plenty of good stuff in it, but it fails as a sequel hard. And I think that's kind of what this one does too. So
I think so too, but which one fails harder? Because I imagine.
Well, okay, going into the rankings then.
Yeah, go for it.
I've been voluntold. I would put my Alien films ranking, depending on what day you ask me and what mood I'm in. Alien and Aliens, its sequel, are vying for the top 1 and 2 spots. I think that Alien, from a filmmaking perspective, is a better film. I think Aliens, from a storytelling perspective, is a better movie. And I use film and movie in very specific terms there. And so, again, depending on what my mood is, those are solidly 1 and 2. Which one is 1 and which one is 2 can vary. I generally tend to put Aliens as the best of the franchise, but I will fully admit that Alien is a better film artistically. Then I would put Alien 3, which is a fine film in its own right. It immediately shot itself in the foot when Newt and Hicks were killed.
You know what's really funny here is that I feel like, if I can interrupt you for a moment, and I apologize, but I feel like once Doug and you and I reveal what our number 3 is, I'm pretty sure the rest of the list writes itself. But please continue.
Well, okay. So I would put Alien 3. To me, it's like just a constant downward trend, honestly, from all the Alien movies. 1 and 2 are unequaled. They are tent poles of both film and popular culture. It's very hard to follow that with any kind of consistency. So Alien 3, fine film in its own right. I kind of thought the original concept was more intriguing, but putting it on a prison planet, also interesting. Whatever. Anyway, number 3, Alien 3. Specifically the whatever it's called, the assembly cut. Much better than the theatrical cut.
For sure.
Although, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Then I would actually put Alien Romulus at 4. And then Alien Resurrection down at 5. But those, like, the 1 and 2 are way up there, close to a perfect 10 for both of them, for Alien and Aliens both. And then you drop down to like 3 or 4, maybe 5 if I'm being generous for Alien 3, and then you're vying for the worst F grade. And Alien Romulus has the same problem that Resurrection did, where the first half of the film is actually decent to even very good. And the last half of the film is utter crap, except for a couple of scenes. And I think that Alien Romulus managed to put that utter crap point farther into the film than Resurrection did. And that's why I give it number 4, and that's about it.
Where are you at, Doug?
So my list might surprise some people because I put a lot of thought in this, and I'm staring at it. I'm still thinking it through, and I'm going to stand by it. Number 1 for me is Aliens, unequivocally. Now, obviously, for similar points, both Alien and Aliens get very high marks from me in the whole pantheon of movies that I love. But Aliens is number 1, and Alien is number 2. But really, those are the 2 great movies.
Oh, yeah.
And we are going to go sliding down the ladder here. We're going to go down. We're going into the basement. And here we are with these other films. My third favorite, and this is where everyone's going to get mad at me, is Resurrection.
How dare you? That's actually unexpected, I admit.
He admitted it was guilty pleasure.
Alien Resurrection, I confess to Sable, is actually a guilty pleasure movie of mine. I have rewatched it. Now I really hate the end. I don't like the alien that emerges at the end. Very similar to why I don't like Romulus. For similar or part of the reasons I don't like both films. I don't like that transcendent alien thing. It's totally bizarre. I don't like that. But oddly, Alien Resurrection, this is where it comes into. I actually like that crazy ass mercenary crew. The guy in the wheelchair, the African American guy, Ron Perlman's character has a few one-line. Winona Ryder is in. I actually like them, and the guy, I think of him as Guy of Gisborne. He's in it. And Brad Dourif is in it. And I thought it was cool how the aliens attacked each other to create a pool of acid to escape in the one that. So it's one of a flagrant guilty pleasure movie for me. And there's I know what they are for me. Movies that are universally rejected that I'm like, I like it. I don't know what's wrong with me. So Resurrection, and I do like the underwater sequence with the aliens in Resurrection as well. And then I would put Romulus. And then I would put Alien 3. And by the way, those final three are almost in a virtual tie, I would say. I really had to wrestle to separate which one's really better than the other. And it's really hard to say it that conclusively, but I felt like that was the task. So Aliens, Alien Resurrection, Alien Romulus, and Alien 3. I had just not, and by the way, I have heard people make cases for Alien 3. None of you are wrong. I'm not really going to die on this hill, but Charles Dance was excellent in it. Alien 3 has an absolute iconic scene when the alien comes right up to her neck. That's an iconic Hollywood scene.
Yeah.
Whether this movie is good or bad, that scene has survived the test of time. And the soundtrack is actually really freaking awesome for Alien 3. I have the original theatrical release soundtrack and the extended, and it's great music by Elliot.
I think the soundtrack for most of these movies is fantastic, including Romulus. I love the soundtrack.
Yes, yes, and they even added a little Jerry Goldsmith callbacks in Romulus.
Yeah, they had music from both Alien and Aliens in Romulus, and you noticed it when it happened, or at least I did.
So my ranking, if I can cut you off, apologies.
Sure, please do.
My ranking is going to be Alien as the number one, even though I came into the franchise on Aliens, and I find that it's usually reasonable to expect that the first one you see between Alien and Aliens is likely going to be your favorite. I tend toward Alien because of what Sable was getting at with regard to its filmistry. I just really appreciate it. It established a franchise.
Yeah.
It speaks to both horror and science fiction in a very strong, originally voiced way. And it has really set a bar for a lot of those, for a lot of the films that have come after with regard to those two genres. So I really appreciate Alien for its filmic impact. Aliens is fun. It helped me overcome my legitimate fear of horror movies. And so I would put Aliens second. Then I would probably put Romulus third, but only because it survives much longer as an interesting, intense storytelling than Resurrection does. And I would Resurrection and Alien 3. Then I would put Alien 3 fourth. Now, I agree with BGD when he says that there's a lot of quotables that came out of Alien 3. I said in chat, I heard, do me a favor, disconnect me. I can be reworked. I'll never be top of the line again. I'd rather be nothing. That is one of the only quotes that I remember from the film, but it is such a heavy impact because the nature of the relationship between the two characters, because the nature of the scene that they're involved in.
And why was it impactful? Because it was established a film previous?
Right. But it's not, I'm not sort of, I don't mean to denigrate Alien 3 by putting it fourth. I just think that Romulus achieved where Alien 3 didn't. And then I would put Resurrection on the end because I'm not going to really be as vitriolic as I could. And I know that, Doug, you said it's a pleasure. And I'll admit freely that I have not seen it in a very long time. And so I'm sort of carrying my initial reaction forward in time. So I will, after this stream, sometime this week, I will sit down. I will rewatch Resurrection because I have the box set here. So I'll rewatch it and I will do my best to form a new opinion. But at this point in time, I would put that at the end. So
I'm in the same boat with Alien 3. I might rewatch it and be like, man, I liked it better than I remember.
Make sure
and it's, as you sort of watch film and age and you sort of get a better handle on the filmmaking process, opinions change.
Absolutely.
So it becomes... It's still entertainment, but it's sort of balanced out by a knowledge that you gain from watching so many films across so many decades. So opinions change, and I understand that. And this isn't a definitive set in stone list for the sheer fact that I haven't seen Resurrection in a long time.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll move up, maybe it'll move down, but I do think that Romulus, with the exception of the last 15 minutes, is probably the best Alien movie we've gotten since, what was it, 86 was Aliens, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's the best one we've gotten. And you can shove Prometheus and Covenant and AVP, like you can shove all those in there at the end. I think Romulus is really the best Alien film we've had since Aliens.
Yeah, and it's funny. I actually originally ranked all 7 because I included Prometheus and Covenant. But Prometheus would finish 6th, and Covenant even. And Prometheus is almost in that 3-way virtual tie with Romulus and Resurrection and Alien 3, and then down all the way down is Covenant. That was almost unwatchable.
Like you're skipping several spaces to put it down solo. Yeah.
That one's really bad. But there are things that I did like about Prometheus. There are things I like about Alien 3. There are things I like about Alien Romulus, and there are things I like about Alien Resurrection. So that chunk is kind of, it's like that C- level film, that chunk, and then you have A+ with Alien and Alien. So, and then an F, a clear F with Covenant. Ugh, God, I hate Covenant.
Speaking of letters, right? I cannot tell you, and this is a silly nitpick, I cannot tell you how annoyed I am. First of all, the name Andy the android
is so
painfully on the nose.
Yeah,
right? Second of all, we have Ash, Bishop, Call, David. Why didn't we name him Eddie? Right? They're going in alphabetical progression. Why not give him an E name?
I think, yeah.
Like, I don't even care that there's another android in the film that deviates. Right. As long as you would have kept his one, kept the letter E. The main android is,
or even at least made Rook the E.
And like, you can't. Well, here's the thing about Rook. First of all, and we're kind of scatterbraining at this point, but I think that, and I'm going to say this delicately, and I'm going to dial back the intensity. Love Ian Holm, right?
But Ian Holm is dead.
Phenomenal. I think that, and I thought this with Carrie Fisher, and I thought this with Peter Cushing, I think it's a little ghoulish to make them up with CG to have them participate in a film that they have
already dead.
They've passed before they had an opportunity to do that. But my major issue with Rook is that if we're naming him Rook as a callback to Bishop, right? Why didn't you hire Lance Henriksen to do Rook?
That's right.
I get it that he's not a science officer. Bishop's not a science officer. I totally understand that. But if the callback that you're attempting to make is to chess pieces on a board with the names of these characters,
good catch,
and hire the guy who I'm sure, and I'm going to say I'm sure he would have loved to have done it. For all I know, they did contact him, and he said no or wanted too much money or whatever. I don't have that information, but it really would have been better had Lance been in that role. I think it was the CG across the board, unless it was looking up into the stars and space phenomenon, the CG was just not good.
You know what? There was like 2 scenes where it was really good. And one of them was over a computer monitor in that analog digital space where you're looking at a screen and Rook is talking. And I think they made a big mistake. Like, they probably got excited about the idea of bringing Ian Holm to life in this film.
I agree.
But they made the mistake of involving him in all of Act 2, all of Act 3, and it's like, what? This is a lot of Ian Holm.
I think I agree with you. I think once they put him on that screen, it was less jarring.
Right.
But when he was there in front of the characters and we actually saw him, it was a bit much with regard to the CG. Like, if
it looked like that was easily the worst effect in the film. And we can do, like, the Corridor crew here on YouTube has done deep fakes of Tom Cruise that actually look legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
you can do a good deep fake nowadays with current technology. I don't know what they were using, but it looked like they were that they had a whiteboard in place of his head and were projecting a film projector on it a lot of the time. And the lip syncing didn't even match sometimes.
No, the lip syncing was so bad.
It was so
I've
bad.
seen some incredible deep fakes. So it's weird that Hollywood's messing this up.
I know.
Like YouTube is
Surely
not.
they have access to the stuff that the people with their desktops can use.
Man,
right?
Have you guys seen the deep fake of Star Trek 3 with Christy Alley's face?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah,
It looks awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
I've also seen a deep fake of Jeff Bridges re-deep faked for Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
And it looks great.
It's great.
And
The
it's
Tron
great.
Legacy deepfake is awful. It was better than what they did to Ian Holm in this movie.
It was.
I think of them almost like on par with each other. You know? And
at least
Legacy was
the
2010.
matched. Yeah, the lip syncing matched in Legacy at least because they had actually Jeff Bridges come in and do the performance, and then they deep faked him to be younger, right?
Yes.
Maybe that's part of it.
Maybe they had Jeff Bridges moving around. You know, he was acting. His body was. Ian Holm, it was just straight on, like a Silence of the Lambs camera shot, like close up, straight on each time, and there was no variation to it, and they kept doing it. So that's why I think it was just awkward.
Do you remember the awful scenes that they refilmed from the Justice League with Henry Cavill? It was that kind of bad. It was just that kind of bad. It was awful. You could absolutely tell, like, it was ghoulish. And if you're gonna do something like that, it seems almost disrespectful to not do it as well as you can. And if you can't do it as well as you can, maybe call it off. Right?
Call it off. Have a plan B. Cast a real actor.
Yeah.
And just have a new look for the android. Who cares? That's what we did with Andy. So, I mean, anyway.
Andy, who, by the way, he stole the show, in my opinion.
Best character in the film.
Absolutely best character in the film. Stole every scene that he was in. Nailed. And there were, several personalities that he sort of graduated through. Good God, that kid. Get him in more movies. Such an incredible actor. Such an incredible character.
Well, he was the one character that we remembered, the one character that had an arc, and a character that changed through the film. All the other characters kind of did not. So he really stood out to me.
Yeah, he was
in a positive way.
I'm sorry, Juden Fudds. It was appropriate. I apologize.
So why don't we do?
Buzz is in a fetal position, rocking in the corner.
Not the Justice League. Not the Justice League. Not Snyder's League, at least.
Yeah, no.
Why don't we do a brief synopsis of the film and talk about the good stuff, like I mentioned, so that we can get, because again, there is good stuff. We can get that out of the way before.
Well, I'd like to throw out one good thing that I know everyone will agree with really quick, and because it's so fun to talk about, that they kept the technological aesthetic of Alien and Alien. That was such a great call.
The form language of this movie was it was aces all around. It was absolutely incredible.
The look of the film
language was wonderful.
100%. That's probably the top of the look of the film, the design language, and the fact that most of it is practical.
Yeah, analog television screens that are fuzzy reminds me of being a kid. Even the sound. Perfect. It looked like at no time did I question whether or not I was in the Aliens universe.
Right.
I was. Right. Whereas Prometheus, I was like, is this an Aliens movie? Keep in mind, you didn't really see an alien until the end. The engineers are pretty adjacent to, you saw the space jockey. So I didn't even know I was in an Aliens movie half the time in Prometheus. But this, unmistakable.
I didn't see Prometheus outside of the first 15 minutes, but I can recall people complaining about how it looked way too technologically advanced for it to lead up into Alien.
Totally. See, at least in Star Wars, where the prequels had this glossy, spectacular technological, it worked because it was like the universe regressed into the Empire.
Yes.
There was this high society and we lost it. Whereas Prometheus, that's not really built into that world building.
Yeah, 100%.
But anyway, it was so fun looking at sets that looked like they came from Alien and Aliens. I really appreciated that freeze on the technology there. It really worked.
I completely agree with you, and I don't think it ever really. It was always pleasant, and it was always refreshing. Like, you can get into a film that does a lot of this memberberry stuff that really just gets tiresome. It's like, okay, yes, I remember this from the first movie. Oh, okay, yes, I remember from the second movie. But it doesn't do a lot of that to a poor or a denigrated effect. It just I think the reason is because we're going into this movie expecting it to be like, we're coming off of a tale of just not great movies. And so every time it's sort of reinforcing this idea that Alvarez really does get it. He does like aliens. He's going to go ahead and demonstrate to us that he likes Alien. He likes aliens. I think that's really, I think it worked to its, it worked to a very positive end in my view.
Yeah, you can absolutely tell. You can absolutely tell that the film was made by people who enjoy the franchise and enjoy the concept of the aliens.
Yes, yes,
and are trying to, and are trying. They're trying to pay homage to that, and in most cases, I would say succeeding up until the point where you start, getting into the as soon as you introduce the exposition dump of CG film projector Ian Holmes' face, giving you the we're jumping ahead here. This is the bad stuff. You got CG film projector Ian Holmes' face giving you an exposition dump about the black goo, and at that point, the whole thing starts going off the rails. But up to that point, other than the 10-minute chest burster, which I'll get into, or the 10-minute face hugger or whatever, up until that point, pretty decent. In fact,
if they would have just stuck
even up to very good,
a classic dungeon crawl in the alien world, I think they would have been fine. The second the black goo showed up and Ian Holm came in to walk us through it, and now there's like this engineer-looking alien showing up, and I was like, what the hell just happened? They even had a good built ticking clock, because Alien and Alien feature the ticking clock. And this one was different because it was a degrading orbit into the ice rings of this planet. I thought that was actually creative.
Fantastic. I loved that. I loved every single shot that we got in that film with the rings, whether it was from far away, threatening, or close up, imminent. I loved every single shot that we got with that. I thought it worked so well. I just really enjoyed those particular
with your opinion.
Yeah. So the good stuff, man. We've already talked about the look and feel of the film, and the fact that they kind of integrated Blade Runner into the start of it is also a good.
Oh yeah.
Hey, let's take Ridley Scott's other best film and let's marry them together.
Yeah.
And or at least his best science fiction film. And that was, obviously that was a callback. I also thought when the very opening, when they are pulling the cocooned, so here we go, synopsis. The whole reason the movie starts is that Weyland Yutani, in between Alien and Aliens, sends a recovery craft out to the wreckage of the Nostromo, and somehow the alien has cocooned itself. The one that Ripley blasted out. Yeah, right. The one that Ripley blasted out of the tugboat has cocooned itself and is in the wreckage of the Nostromo, even though it blew up in a nuclear explosion. But
the wreckage hasn't suffered much entropy.
It's still sitting there in just a huge cloud in
a cluster.
Regardless, okay, fine, whatever. We're moving the story.
Exactly. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, okay, exactly. I can get over it.
So they find the alien, which has cocooned itself. They bring it on board to a spaceship. They cut the cocoon open, and we have a fantastic shot as as a distorted recording of the entrance of the gods into Valhalla from Der Ring des Nibelungen plays, we have a fantastic shot of the bisected cocoon and the alien curled up, the xenomorph. And what they did, and I said this to Doug in the theater, I leaned over and said,
he explained it to me.
So what they did is they took H.R. Giger's original painting that inspired the alien for the first film, and they put it on screen just in a mirrored position. But the alien, if you look at it, it's different than at the end of the first movie. Its skull is longer and more curved.
Yes.
It's curled up with its hands in front of its face in a praying position. It is that painting. So if you look up the original, what is it called? Necronom 4, I think, or whatever it's called.
Here, let me see if I can share my screen.
Go for it.
I
Tell
think
me if this is it, Sable.
Let's see.
Window. Share.
So at that point, I was like, I am so on board for this film because you guys are telling the fans that you are fans, right? They are.
Can you see that?
No,
I can. I think I have to add it. Let me do this. There we go.
Is that it?
That's the one. That's it. That's it right there. And they took that painting and they flipped it, and they mirrored it so it's facing the other direction, and they tilted it about 40 degrees or so. But that painting is the bisected cocoon with the alien inside. After and that's like within the first 3 minutes of the film, as they play the entrance of the gods to Valhalla over that image, and then fade to black, and then we get the weird opening titles where they put the glyphs halfway.
Yeah.
From the first Alien movie, the glyphs that form Alien. They put half of on screen, and then they just put Romulus on there, and they never finished the word alien. I don't know what the heck was up with that.
They were really
that
bizarre.
either.
It's on the screen for like 10 seconds, and
when I saw those, I was expecting them to finish the word first of all,
of course,
but like the whole opening was a little strange. Like, I get we're moving we're panning left now instead of panning right, like in the original film, but like just do it. Just get there, right?
Yeah.
I didn't understand why they were doing that. Maybe they thought they were being more clever than they were. Maybe they were just doing a sort of a halfway to demonstrate in the opening title that it's halfway between Alien and Aliens. I don't know what they were going for, but I agree. It was a little weird that they chose to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and what a weird thing to kind of botch, right? Because Alien and Aliens both do it, and they are both kind of different. You know, Alien has the epic, famous, slow glyph.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
And to this day, when I'm watching Alien, to this day, I absolutely love waiting for the pieces to fit together. I still get a thrill out of it.
It's a genius way to start building tension and dread.
Well, and then Alien has the James Horner score, which is very ominous. Mm-hmm. And then the more and kind of an original approach where it hatches and the light comes out and blinds the screen, right? So this moment is part of what the experience of an Aliens movie is. And when it started, I was like, "Oh, cool! Oh, what?
I've thought about that.
I got excited for like a half of a second.
Yep, you're invested and then immediately uninvested, which is very jarring. Yep, I agree.
It's super jarring. I've thought about that actually quite a bit in the last few days after seeing the film, and I feel like they could have. What they should have done is put the glyphs forming on the screen and intercut it with the scenes of them recovering the alien and cutting it open and so on and so forth. And like, okay, here's one letter, boom, and then next scene, and then another letter, and then another scene. That could have worked. I think that would have, but at the end, you gotta give us the whole freaking title, man. Don't leave us with half-formed letters sitting there on the screen. That's bizarre.
Well, for me, that title moment is about tone,
and
music, and the desolation of space. I mean, that's what those do. And they kind of had it, and it's just it's a weird one to kind of start and swing and miss on. Just a little bizarre. It didn't ruin the movie for me by any stretch. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's in I mean, ironically, it kind of sets you up for the actual film.
And in some ways,
It's coitus interruptus, man. So,
what did you guys think about Rain? She's the female lead of the story.
she was there.
Yeah,
I liked her. I liked her enough. I think that she was very competent as an aspect of Ripley from Alien, the leader, the one who is correct, the one who is making the correct calls that no one is listening to.
the emergent
I feel
heroine,
like, yeah. So I feel like she was very competently acted. And I feel like she was a very well expressed character throughout. I think that
The problem with Rain is that we don't have a scene where we can invest in her until the last third of the film, when she's sitting there with Andy and they think they're going to die, and she's saying, "Tell me a joke."
well,
because they've said, they've set that up, and like, okay, yeah, she's smart, she's competent, she's the one who's saying this is a bad idea the whole time, yet somehow she still goes along with it. And she, she does the best that she can. So yeah, the actress did a very good job. I agree.
Haley Spaney.
Well acted.
Yeah, very well acted.
Although she never really seemed like she was scared, to be honest. Thinking back on it, she never came across to me as being terrified like the rest of the characters did.
Yeah, even Ripley, who is my all-time favorite heroine, Ellen Ripley, all-time favorite, number one. Even she, in both films, had moments of genuine abject terror.
Yeah,
exactly.
Terror.
You would,
and it doesn't make her look weak.
No, I agree with you. I think Ripley is absolutely probably my most favorite action hero. Period. Full stop. And I also think that Rain, or that's her name, correct?
Rain. Yeah, Rain.
I also think that Rain was a little
monotone.
No, she wasn't monotone, but she was definitely in control. I think way more frequently than she should have been.
Yeah,
I thought she was very serviceable.
I agree with that. Sure,
she was not a girl boss.
Yeah,
which is a term that's emerged as kind of an unearned, overpowering heroine who puts everyone in check, who's unlikable and puts everyone in check. She was absolutely not like that.
Right.
So she was very serviceable. She was an effective lead. I thought she performed the role very well. She's no Ripley, but she also didn't really drop the ball either. She was kind of right in the middle there for me.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable take.
She was there. Yeah. Yeah. We needed a scene like we got with her and Andy sitting there telling jokes. That was a great scene. And at that point I'm like, hey, now I actually care about the character. Up to that point.
Yeah, like I think they attempted to do something like that at the start. So when we're first introduced to the character, she's eating, which is like, okay, that's a callback. Then he shows up and he gives her the bread, and there's milk on the table, which is a callback. As soon as I saw that milk on the table, I was like, he's an android.
He's an android.
Now they were, again, this is a heavy spoiler review. I think there's one additional person that's come into view since I've said that last. Heavy spoilers. But when he, and this is only in the first couple minutes of the movie anyway, but we're going to ruin it for you if you don't like spoilers. So like, as soon as the milk was on the table, I was like, okay, he's an android. And then after the whole bureaucracy scene, and they show the kids who are beating on Andy, and she shows up and she covers him, she makes them go away, she resets his programming. Like, I think that was sort of an attempt at having us invest in the character, because Andy is extremely easy to emotionally invest in. And I think that Alvarez 100% knew that.
Yeah.
He knew that out of the gate, Andy's going to be the character that everyone invests in. So to get Rain's investiture as well, he has her cover for Andy in a moment of weakness. And I agree with you. I don't think it quite gets there. Like, it makes her likable for sure, but I think that it falls just short of an emotional investiture that we really need throughout the film. And then on top of that, even if that moment did provide that emotional connection, her lack of fear throughout the rest of the film would have completely stamped it out, because it wouldn't have mattered. If she's not scared for her life, we're not scared for her life, and so that emotional investiture is going to fall flat.
Yeah.
Well, and you need to show her lose a face off or two. Like in Alien, Ripley is very background in the first part of the film.
Yeah.
And then she's like, we're with her, right? You know, Kane's all locked up with the parasite, and she's like, no, I can't let you in. And we all know that was a tough call.
Yeah.
And then Ash undermines her, right? And we're like, oh my God. And then she confronts Ash in a very, very calm, non-confrontational way. And Ash is pretty much, you do your job and I'll do mine. And now he just ignored her. So we're on her side because we see people circumventing her. So, and then in Aliens, you know, when Vasquez is like, you know, makes fun of her, like, I just need to know one thing, man, where they are. And Ripley is kind of like being dismissed. You need to show her being, you know, you need to show vulnerability. And they didn't quite do that with this hero.
And I think
she's the one who's always right through the whole film.
Yes, Ripley is always right, and she's always ignored. And I think that is an essential piece of this being a horror movie, because what ultimately causes horror is a loss of agency. It's a loss of control. And the fact that she's always right, but has no control to bring her correct decisions. And when she does have control, it's immediately taken from her from Ash, or you know, there are other situations where that happens. That's an essential piece of the horror elements of this film. And not having that with Rain, I think, undermines the horror. And this is coming from someone who cannot watch horror movies, except for apparently the Alien franchise. So like, I didn't feel like she felt she was in danger, right? There were very tense moments in the movie, like, you know, raise the temperature, be very quiet, call, you know, you get the call. Like, there were very, very tense moments. I came out of that film having sweated a little bit because of how locked up I was in my chair. Very, very effective. Very effective. However,
tension.
Yeah, it's like in the moment where we are tense, the audience is tense, she doesn't really seem to be that tense, right? Like, she knows that him getting on the phone and talking to his sister is bad, but like, there's no real horror there. There's no real terror there. I'm tense because I know what's going to happen as an audience member. She doesn't seem to really mind all that much.
Well, and Ridley Scott chose Lambert in the first film to be the audience member.
Yeah.
So that's why Lambert's always screaming and kind of like, you know, a little out of control. She's us. So when we're like, what was that? Lambert's freaking out for us. In Aliens, Hudson plays that role. Yeah, he's one who's like, screw this, man. Game over. I don't want to deal with this. And we're like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. You know, so we didn't really get that one character that kind of consistently stood in for us. And that would have helped.
I agree. I want to actually read this comment out because it ties back to the general nature of the channel. So Drudenfoot says, I agree with you on the loss of agency being a central aspect of horror, which makes it a conundrum for the TTRPG hobby, becoming a very thin line to walk on as GM and not railroad the players. I could not agree with that more.
Yeah, that's a common problem.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I wanted to highlight that specifically because it ties back to the RPG Foundation.
The nature of the channel, 100%. I think that, and you know, you and I, Bacon, have talked about this last week. That's why horror games, if you're going to make an effective horror RPG, you need to have a mechanic built in which takes away the player's agency.
Or even,
and that's why 10 Candles is so effective at that, is because the entire game is built around a mechanic, which is a ticking clock that takes away the player's ability to influence the outcome.
Yes, and even if you don't take it away mechanically, there are still other ways to do it conversationally between the GM and the player, but there has to be a transgression upon character agency, not player agency, which is different, character agency, in order to really effectively get horror into the game. But as Drudenfoot says, it's a very dangerous, very thin line to walk, because you really railroad if you and it doesn't take much to railroad. Like it's just that centimeter too far, just that that microscopic little over the line, that amount that you go over the line that can really just flatline a game because now the players can't do what they want to do, or the characters can't do what they want to do, or it didn't matter anyway because they're headed in the direction you want them to go in anyway. So it becomes a very, it's just a tense sort of a dance, which I guess in and of itself is kind of like evident of a horror genre, right?
Well, what's interesting too is the Alien RPG itself has some solutions for this. They those xenomorphs kill quickly, so
yes,
you can't get attached to your character because you probably aren't going to survive.
Yep.
They're faster than you. They're stronger than you. They cover all that ground, and you're barely moving. So you really just want to avoid these things. So, and they even encourage a funnel where you play multiple characters and just plan on losing more than half of them. So, like, I like that. I think that was a good antidote for the storytelling GM who might take too much control over the story and remove too much agency from the players.
Right.
Alien's like, hey, these are disposable characters. Good luck.
Yeah, and I like that. I actually tend to like role-playing games and approach role-playing games in that same mindset. Like, I like Call of Cthulhu. I like Alien. I should say I like the way Alien reads. I haven't actually played a game yet, but I really do like those games where I go in knowing I have no shot. I'm going to die by the end of this, or I'm going to be driven insane, or something not good is going to end my character. And because of that, I feel like I'm really kind of able to experience it more vividly and in a much more prescient manner because, Bacon knows what's coming. Bacon knows it's not going to end well. My character has no idea.
No clue.
Right? And so I feel like that that combination of my knowledge and the character's complete obliviousness really kind of, it gets into the guts of what I love about role-playing.
Well, and it's survivalism at that point, which is primal, and that's why it's horror. It's primal.
Yes. But I am going to ask you to carry the stream for 2 minutes. I have to excuse myself.
Sure.
I apologize.
Oh, no
Right
worries.
back.
Not a problem. I'll piggyback on that with saying that even in that case, though, the Alien RPG has mechanics tied to that with the panic rating, right?
Oh, true. Yeah, there's a panic. Yeah, if you roll. Yeah.
There's the whole horror games ever since Call of Cthulhu have done this to varying degrees of effectiveness with, in that case, the sanity rating, which is like,
right.
It's like a character thing you already have on your sheet and you just tick it down. And that's, in my opinion, the most crude and ineffective way that you can do it. I like that you can have that a lot of horror games, the Breathless system does this. For anybody who's ever looked at something like Stoneburner or other games like in that genre, or the Alien RPG has, the reviews of the Alien RPG have picked this mechanic out with their panic system. The mechanics behind the panic have been things that just about every reviewer that looks at Free League's Alien RPG has said, this is great. This really helps to build the tension. Same with something like Lacuna, the Creation of the Mystery and the Girl from the Blue City is this esoteric little RPG, and it has 2 meters essentially on your character. Your heart rate has to, your heart rate goes up as you do more and more stuff, and the higher your heart rate is, the more effective you are at changing stuff in the dream space or the digital space or whatever it is that you're in, kind of like Matrix. But if it gets too high, well, you stroke out. So like there's
mechanic is
you have a tension. You have to have some kind of a mechanic to concretize the tension that's building throughout the game.
Well, what's cool about panic is it's a little spontaneous, whereas like sanity, it's like hit points that go dipping down.
Right. Yeah, it's just another hit point track, right?
Exactly. It's another hit point track, and panic is good because you really have zero control over what you're going to roll, and it adds a degree of spontaneity to it, and I do appreciate that, and I think that's what Druden Fuzz was kind of getting to when she was comparing the two as well.
Yeah, exactly. She brings that up, and she's exactly right. It's the idea of stress or panic or whatever kind of mechanic you're going to use on that. Various games use that now.
as far as like Alien,
It's in the dark.
Romulus,
The dark uses stress too. So, and it's
yeah, and I
Same
thought
thing.
that the horror elements of Romulus were very well done for the most part. I would say,
yeah, I agree.
the reason I say for the most part is because they moved away from horror as the film progressed, which was unusual.
Yeah,
But they really started with horror. They progressed with horror. They sprang the trap in a horror way, and then it started to move away from it. But while they were in the horror
it was very
arena,
effective.
I thought
Yeah.
they were very effective in the film.
Yeah, they said they had all the components.
Yeah, the scene,
not just in the look, but they had all the components of the setup. Is like, oh, we got get up to the station, and we got 4 hours until it hits the ring or whatever.
yeah,
So
there was one.
we'll be in and out in 30 minutes, and yeah, right.
Yeah, there was one sequence and two scenes in particular that stood out to me. The sequence where and you see some of it in the trailer, unfortunately, but the scene where the temperature rises and the face huggers start to drop into the water.
Yeah.
And he's in the water with his back turned, and you kind of see these face huggers in the water moving toward him, and there's an underwater shot, almost like Jaws as it approaches. That's pretty freaking spooky, and these things are very giant spider-like in this. You get a real good look at them. There's multiple face huggers in this, and I thought that was really good to build tension.
Sure.
And then there was one scene while chaos is ensuing, and I think there was a fight with the face huggers on the ground, and things aren't going well. And Andy is in the middle of like a download or reboot, so he's kind of staring up and twitching at the same time. So
that was very religious iconography in that scene.
but it was also unnerving, and it really heightened the tension of the scene that he's behaving in this bizarre manner while this terrifying event is finally culminating right behind him. I thought that was a very good and
that was very effective.
Yeah,
that was easily the best. Going to the idea of talking about the good parts of the film, I would say that whole thing of and sadly, just about all of it was put into the trailer.
Yeah,
and there's a reason why the trailer is almost entirely constructed of scenes that happen in the first half of the film. I'll say that.
Yes,
and most of them take place around that whole facehugger sequence, because the facehugger sequence is the best part of the film. Just is, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the marketers watched the film and decided the same thing, because all the marketing of this was based around that facehugger, from the red poster with the head and the trailer. All of it was facehuggers. So that was their base hit, right? They knew they hit a double there. And there was another scene that I really appreciated in terms of creating tension, unexpected fright. It's with the xenomorphs. The xenomorphs are starting to come out, and Rain is trying to get through this door. Okay, and the xenomorph is like coming up closer and closer, and she's trying to get through this door, and she finally gets through it, and she's panicked. She starts running. She runs through another door, and the camera's kind of following her flight from this passage, and then suddenly she just and the camera goes with her right over the edge.
Yeah.
And she falls about 2 or 3 stories, and like. When I was in I was like, whoa, dude! It's like you just fell over the edge of a roof with her. It was pretty effective shot.
Yeah, that was a good one too. I agree. But I mean, that was right on the end of that. That was right on the tail end of the facehugger sequence, and then they have. That was also effective as the whole chestburster thing was happening. She kicks the control stick and sends the spaceship all the way to the other end of the station and crashes into the bay at the opposite end.
Which was a little bit Deus Ex Machina.
It was. Right? It's like, oh, hey.
Just a little bit. It worked, but it was like it flirted with real bad filmmaking. And
I mean, they were obviously upping the stakes, because, it just so happened to go into the landing bay on the other side of the station, right across from where just happened to hit it right on. Of course, it smashes into a fuel tank on its way there, which jets the station towards the rings. And now they've only got an hour or whatever it was. But I thought that as far as the mood went, that was great. As far as like, oh man, oh crap, everything's going wrong now. Like it can't get any worse than this.
Yeah, that was one of the most tense scenes, I think, in the whole movie.
Sure.
That was like I was absolutely locked into my chair at that point.
Yeah,
I thought it was very effective.
Sure.
Deus Ex Machina aside, it was a very, very effective tension build.
Exactly, and that was, and also that one split-second shot of them running away from the door as the door slams shut with all the fingers of the facehuggers all the way up and down the jam. Terrifying visuals. Like, hey, all these skeletal spiders all coming out of their egg sac trying to get you. And then the fact that Rain had tried to bust open the glass and couldn't get through, but she weakened it enough that now all the facehuggers bust through on the opposite way and start chasing them. That was super effective too. It's like,
I agree.
I tried to save you. I did this and it didn't work. And now it doomed us. That was all very great horror stuff. That entire facehugger, that entire first, 20-ish minutes or whatever, when they're getting into the space station and it's very measured and slow paced, and they're finding signs of things have gone wrong and acid burns everywhere and half of an android and yada yada, and it's like building up the tension, and then they get into the cryo lab, and oh man, really outstanding stellar horror stuff as the temperature starts here's the cryo fuel we need. They try to get it, flash freezes one guy's hand. Oh, that's bad. And then it set the alarm off because now the temperature is going to rise, and because they've disrupted the cryo, and everything goes red. And just the way they're building the tension, all of that sequence, utterly fantastic. Great filmmaking, totally on point for Alien.
I did like too the creative thinking of raising the temperature to camouflage yourself from the facehuggers as they detect heat. So there was a little effort to kind of fill in a little bit more of the facehugger without breaking the fear of them. And there's that scene where she's kind of walking through with the temperature high, so she's kind of hidden from them, and they're all kind of standing still, almost like with antenna, like feelers out there looking for any.
Yeah, their front legs up and their tails curled like a bunch of scorpions.
Yeah, micro changes in air density.
Micro changes in air density, my ass.
Yeah, but they were just kind of sitting there, kind of close by, feeling for you, and they're trying to pass by. I thought that was pretty cool.
That was also excellent. That was also an excellent scene that was not paid off. I thought, the tension buildup was really great.
Yeah, you're right.
And then his girlfriend gets on the phone with him or on the radio with him, and now there's sound and he's getting tense, and they actually show all the goosebumps on his arm, and it's like, oh, now we're building it. But then for whatever reason, it falls apart as soon as Andy says run. And then it shifts to an action scene.
Right. They really just kind of
and they didn't. And again, like you were saying earlier, Rain doesn't look as terrified as she should be once she realizes that they're giving themselves away to all of these deadly creatures, right?
Well, and to be perfectly honest, if you asked me to walk through there, I'd be pretty effing scared.
No shot. Yeah, no shot.
I'd be really scared because I'd be like, I don't know if I want to do it. I mean, it would take a lot of courage to walk through there and think that I was going to make it. So I would have liked to have seen, like you said, a little bit more terror on their face for that sequence. But ultimately, it was cool. It was a cool new look for the facehuggers. Instead of them just springing at you from an egg, now they're up on ledges. They're at eye level, and they're just kind of with their fingers up in the air. And I was like, that's kind of creepy.
I agree. I think that it really effectively used the facehuggers, and then even later on, when they call back to that moment where we see them all burst out of the containment and come at everyone, and that's where the chest burster comes from. Later on, when they're further down in the station, and we see, oh, that's not the first time this has happened. There's going to be aliens here. I thought that was a really effective callback to the containment and then breaking free, and it's already happened. So it was a very, it was, not really foreshadowing because it was literally in the moment that took place. but I thought that it was effective callback for sure.
I have a question for you guys. Did so this movie shows that the chest burster comes out, sheds its skin. We knew that much.
Mm-hmm.
This movie shows a wall cocoon.
Yep.
For the xenomorph. Is that new?
Brand new.
Brand new,
Mhm.
totally new. They've never done anything
I
like
like
that.
that.
The stage between the face or the chest burster and the actual full scale xenomorph. That's brand new. It's never been happened before.
Okay, I kind of like that because, and I think I'm not the only one. I always wondered where that little face hugger got enough like biomass to quintuple in size. And the cocoon kind of helps you believe it could happen within the nature of the cocoon in some case.
I agree. I thought that was really, I thought it was very inventive. I thought that it filled in some info that we have never received before. I thought it was grotesque as it was intended. I thought that it was very, as is most of the stuff with the horror in Aliens, it was very sexualized in a disturbing manner.
Looking, yes.
Well, not only that, but there was a crowning when the alien came out. It was like it was all very, very related to that aspect of the Alien films. It also calls back to motherhood, and there was, we have a pregnant character who's currently experiencing this horror, and so I all think it was, unfortunately, mostly pointing toward the end of the movie. But taken in isolation, I think it was pretty great that we actually got that in the film.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Do you guys think they're going to do Alien Remus next?
Here's the thing, you saying that, I want to bring this up right now. Why was Romulus important? Like, I get it, Romulus, Remus, and Rome's foundation, and the fact that there were 2 modules on the space station, but like, I can't think of an actual reason why they named it Romulus, aside from the fact that it was just the name of the station, which is like that seems like way less witty than it should have been, right? Like it was just not a lot of thought there.
Yeah,
they were the builders of the empire, unless the bioweapons division had thought they were. I don't know. It is weird. I guess you can make the case that the bioweapons division thought they were going to recreate an empire with this weapon, but that's still pretty thin, man.
It is like maybe, and this is all speculative, right? Like it could be the fact that maybe it was a safety mechanism, right? Maybe they could jettison one module or the other because they knew what they were dealing with. So if something got really crazy out of hand in one module, they could just be like, okay, shut it down, lock it off, and we'll deal with that at a later time. But
they never made that. They never made that explicit in the film.
No, they never made
it. Romulus should have been should have been the secondary attachment to the main body of the station, specifically so you could air gap it, right?
Some sort of security measure.
Which again, that's part of the tension is when the ship goes out of control and heads across the station and crashes into the other side of it. That's part of the tension is that okay, now we have to get across the station, across this. It's air gapped. They have to get through just these particular causeways that connect the station to the other side to get back to the ship. And they never made that explicit. If they'd made that explicit, then it would have made sense. Okay, the Romulus module is where all the experiments are taking place, and the Remus module is, personnel or whatever.
Right. And we may have gotten that, or maybe we will get that in a director's cut. It just probably was not like central to the story that they were telling.
Yeah, it was.
Which I get, and that's fine. And this is honestly not. It's a very minor nitpick.
Yeah, it is
something that I noticed in watching the film. It's like, well, why does Romulus?
Well, there's plenty of stuff that is like scratching at the back of your head, like, okay, why is this happening the way it is during the film? Oh, it's happening because the plot needs it to happen.
Yeah, because they need the ship to go far away. So this is how they're going to achieve that. Yeah. I completely agree.
Which is okay, but as far as so we've talked about like the best parts of the film. The one other part of the film I
actually don't feel like we've talked about Andy enough, but we can we can
get into Andy as the character for sure. But I mean, as far as the actual parts of the film, the way that the narrative progresses, we're talking about the good stuff. And I would say the one other part of the film where it was really good was how much they used the acid blood and how dangerous it was.
Oh, heck yeah.
Which is something that has been indicated in the other films, but never really explored to this depth.
Yes.
And the idea of now, I mean, yeah, it was all CG and it wouldn't really have been swirling around in this fashion like it was. But the idea of, okay, we've set up that the gravity generators are on the fritz from the very beginning of the film.
Right.
Which was really cool. Cool idea.
Brilliant.
Really cool idea is like they get into the station, the gravity is off, but the gravity generators have to purge. They're on an automatic purge cycle or else they will blow up. So every once in a while, wham, we get gravity for about 30 seconds, and then boom, it's gone.
Not even, just a couple seconds.
or whatever it was, yeah. And which causes its own problems. It injures one of the characters because they weren't ready for it. And so then they go and we'll just go and establish the gravity and turn the station back on, and they do so, and you think, okay, whatever. But then they bring it back in towards like in the last quarter of the film when it's like, oh, like, and again, we have the best scene between Andy and Skye where she's like, tell me some jokes. And so he tells her a few jokes and she finishes them because he's told them all before. And then he does one about gravity. And she's like, oh, wait. And so then they go and they purge the gravity generators and they turn the gravity off to stop the aliens from reaching. And then she uses the auto aim pulse rifle to blow them all away. And now we have 0G hallway filled with acid blood clouds. And now they need to get to the other end of that hallway before the gravity generators come back on. And that's a fantastic idea and a fantastic sequence.
Completely agree. I'm going to say here,
even though the blood was CG, obvious
like
CG.
Another person added to the viewership. You're going to get the movie spoiled for you. So if you're not, and here's even an 8th person. So if you are interested in seeing this movie at all and you don't want spoilers, I would ask that you please turn away because we are absolutely heavily spoiling this whole film.
Yes, and if you have seen it and want to chime in, please do.
Please chime in.
Yes,
if you're okay with spoilers, you're good. But otherwise, you are absolutely going to have the movie ruined.
Right.
Look, two
I
people.
will say,
but I think that pretty much does it for me as far as the good.
Honestly. Well, there's one other really good thing.
But
well, I want to mention just on the back of what Sable Phoenix mentioned. We, as the audience, know what's going on with alien blood. We have since the very first film, and so I think that there were a lot of intelligent decisions made to build up to this moment of, oh my God, how are they going to handle this now? And they even they're dropping one-liners about how we're on the last platform of this station. If this blood gets through the bottom, if it's able to actually eat through to the bottom, we are all going to get sucked out from the bottom to the top of the station. We're totally screwed. I like that when they went into the cryogenics lab initially to pull the fuel out and that door didn't close all the way. Very important, because if that door had closed all the way, it would have clipped those face huggers and we would have seen the acid before this scene. So the fact that they let that door be broken so that the face huggers could get out and then of course, launch through the broken glass, became a very important, just a very minor piece of scripting that really built this scene with the blood to a very, very large threat. And I thought that was pretty effective.
Yeah, I will say this on the line of thought with the acid. One of the more memorable deaths in an otherwise, a lot of the deaths in this were pretty forgettable. But there was one scene where the guy that I didn't like, he could barely understand him. His British accent was so over the top. He's underneath that cocoon, and you see acid dripping onto his arm and just going right through. And then this big glob of acid lands on his chest, and you're like, "Oh no!
Yeah,
you're gone, bro!"
Yep.
This, and he's clawing at it, and his fingers are burning.
That was pretty horrific. That was one of the more original deaths in the whole Alien franchise, and very well.
Yes, and I mean that acid worked quick. It looked like holes just going right through him, and I was like, "Yikes!" So I thought that was good with the acid.
Why wasn't he screaming more?
He should have been.
He should have been in absolute mind blank agony. He was just staring at it happening to himself like it was, oh no. The actor should really have sold that.
Well, believe it or not,
I imagine that was probably at least a little bit the responsibility of Alvarez. He may not have
The director.
provided decent direction in that moment because you're acting against nothing. Like your hand's not actually melting away. You're not actually being injured. So,
but they did that with
some of it can be put on the actor. I think that direction is probably
you're probably right because they did it with the chestburster scene too. Like
yes,
in the original.
The chestburster in Alien. Hurt is writhing around and screaming on the table, right? And you're like, what the heck? In this one, the pilot is just like, she's just foaming at the mouth and kind of shivering on the floor. Like it doesn't feel like there's something busting out of her chest to me.
Yep.
I gotta tell you,
they should have really gone into it and sold the pain and distress and horror of
absolutely
it
because like
I agree.
We were seeing it emerge in a way that we had never seen it emerge,
which
before,
was very
right?
inventive and great visual.
And we saw like the practical effects in Alien, which look fantastic still, but like we were seeing this in a brand new way. Like we were seeing the rib cage rip out from the inside out, and we were seeing the acid, toast an individual in a way that we'd never seen before. And so,
lean into it, man.
Performances needed to measure up to what was being shown on screen, and they just unfortunately in these moments didn't. I agree. And I think that while you can certainly lay some of that responsibility at the feet of the actors, I think that they probably didn't get proper direction in that moment. And it might also have been an issue with, and I didn't look any of the actors up. I don't know exactly what they've been in before, but it could just be an issue with never really having acted in a film with
that required that level of shots.
Right. Yeah. Like they didn't really know what they were reacting to. They didn't really know how to get it across in that moment.
Yeah, I'd be very.
Also, that's okay. They're actors; they'll learn. And
just as a side note on that, I would be very interested on how they did the acid effect on that guy because it looked really good, and it had
CG. It looked to me like when he held his hands up and his two fingers started to melt, or three, or however many it was. I in that moment was immediately taken out of the movie. I was like, that was meant for 3D. 100%. It's right up in your face. You can't miss it. I don't know if this movie showed in 3D, but that's the sort of thing that kind of can like take me out of a movie.
I wasn't thinking in those terms, but I just thought like the effect in and of itself, it looked genuine. Like
I got to tell you, I had the pleasure of telling. So I was on a podcast last week, and the two guys that were kind of the hosts. We're like 27 years old. And they asked me long in advance, like, well, why don't we do it on this date? So it was like a month ago. And I was like, let's do Aliens. And they're like, oh, cool. I've never seen it. I was like, oh, what? I was like, that's awesome. I was like, you know what? We'll watch Alien the week before. And then the week you come on, we'll watch Aliens. And we'll do the podcast, when Romulus comes out, right? For timing reasons. I was like, oh, brilliant. So I listened to their podcast, I listened to their Alien podcast, and then I was there for the Aliens discussion. And what's funny is they're like, yeah, I remember watching Alien last week, and when Kane falls over, one of the blood splatter things must have fired earlier, an accident, because they look pretty authentically scared. So I had the pleasure of telling them that the director designed it that way. And that they were completely astute to have caught the authenticity of the freak out. But it was weird that they saw that and they thought it was an accident. I was like, it's authentic and it was by design. So you're right. Like it's something like that. I remember even, making the death memorable is very important. And I've noticed that in a lot of stories, doing something unique to make it memorable, even if it's subtle. It's the Francis Ford Coppola said it in Godfather. Every time there's an assassination, they had to come up with something very memorable. The cannoli, the shotgun in the elevator, the towel around with the lights going up, all these different things, because you remember each and every one, rather than it just being kind of blind or randomized death scenes. Yeah. So, and they had something right there, and I thought they could have hit that fever pitch.
So why don't we talk about one of my two biggest peeves with this film? The most obvious one is the engineer alien thing,
The human
at the
alien
end.
hybrid that they
But-
really need to stop.
but-
Really need to stop trying to make work.
They
It's not
really
working.
do. They really do. But my other biggest pet peeve is the 10-minute chest burster. Because
The what?
the 10-minute
yeah.
what I call the 10-minute chest burster, which has become a thing now and totally undermines the horror of the alien. So
Right.
so in this film, just again, heavy spoilers, what happens is the facehuggers jump out and chase him down the hallway, and we've seen it in the trailer, unfortunately. They grab one of them grabs the pilot and impregnates her. And then, of course, the pilot has the chest burster scene later on. You would think maybe if you would only watched the first couple of films that takes place over the majority of the movie. No, actually, it only takes place within about 10 minutes. The facehugger grabs her. She's on the floor with it. It stays on her for about 5 minutes until they figure out how to get it off. Great visual as they're pulling it off of her, and the tube is being pulled out of her throat. Very disgusting. But she immediately comes back to consciousness. She runs on to get onto the ship, and other stuff is going on that separates them. So she's on the ship with the pregnant girl alone, and within that, again, another maybe 5 minutes or so, real time in diegetic time, the chest burster starts breaking its way out of her rib cage. Call me crazy, but when the facehugger attached itself to Kane in the first film, it was on him for 2 or 3 days.
That's what it seemed. That was the impression that was given.
And then even when it came off, he was still unconscious for hours afterwards until he woke up. And then it was, it wasn't immediate.
He moved around for a while.
He moved around for a while. They made a meal and they all sat down and started eating it. So it was probably at least another hour or so after he woke up that it started busting out of him.
Well, you almost got the idea that the food is what triggered it.
Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, because he talks about how he's starving. But regardless of what triggered it, the whole process takes a while, right? Like, it's not just hump, grab you and you're done now. You've got an alien in you. It's not the facehugger is not implanting an actual chest burster into the person, right? It's inseminating the person to develop the chest burster and gestate it. Yes. So the fact that that's part of the very measured approach of the first film, and why it's so good is like this weird thing happens and we don't know why, and we're not seeing the results of it for a while. We just know that it's now in a bad situation, and then the situation changes, and again, we don't know why, and we don't know how it's going to, the facehugger comes off, and when we find the facehugger, it's dead, and we don't know why, and we don't know what the whole purpose of that was, and we don't know what the results are going to be, and our guy's still in kind of it's a measured, paced buildup of tension. Everything that happens, everything gets worse, but not in a way that you can put your finger on until it actually culminates. And yes, I understand that we now know what the facehugger does, and we now know what the chest burster does. We know the results of the thing, but the characters don't. And once again, that's where the real horror comes in. In our case, as the audience, knowing what's going to happen, okay, lean into that. They did a good job with the whole X-ray thing, right? The X-ray device. Okay, we know what's going to happen. Go ahead and show it to us in a way that makes sense, so that we can actually see it from the inside out. But
you can
lean into the characters still. Like, what the heck was that? Why did it happen? We don't know. What's going to be the result, And then they think that everything's going to be fine until it's not. I don't know. The 10-minute facehugger not only undermines the entire biology of the alien in the first place and what makes it so terrifying, but it's lazy filmmaking as well.
It's lazy filmmaking.
I agree with that. I think the 10-minute chest burster was because they were trying to sort of, not really montage, but they were trying to like paste together interspersed scenes about this is what's happening on the station with these characters, this is what's happening on the ship with these other characters, and they're kind of trying to balance that, going back and forth to show us what all is happening at the same time. Now, unfortunately, it ends up adding time to the chestburster experience, and when you call back to that very first, John Hurt scene at the meal, when they're just like it just happens, and you are sort of forced to be there with all of the characters experiencing it for the same time as the audience is experiencing it. Way more effective. This seems like it was treated like a tired step to get on the way to an actual xenomorph. And so
right.
That's what it felt like. It felt like, okay, we have to do this because people expect it to be there. So they put it in and they tried to make it as interesting as they could, but it really kind of felt like it was just a stepping stone on the way to what we all wanted to get to, instead of treating it like something that could have been shown in a brand new way. I mean, we've seen this movie does a lot new. It did the cocoon on the wall. It did a whole bunch of face huggers. Like, it did a lot correct. There's a lot there. The blood, like, it really capitalized on the things that we've wanted to see for so long that haven't been put in an Alien film. Here they are, and it's like, well, you got the chest bursters, one of the most iconic. They put it on the poster for Alien 3. Like, the chest burster's a big deal. Let's go ahead and do something new with it and make it interesting.
Yeah.
Instead, it was just kind of a throwaway, like, here, we know we have to do this, so we're going to do it, but it's not really that important.
It's like, I feel like, because at that point, after we've gotten through all of the good stuff and all the inventive stuff, other than the acid blood in the hallway, the zero-G hallway, it feels like the first half of the film was the Alien movie that they all wanted to make, and the second half was the Alien movie that the studio told them had to
tie in with Prometheus. They all had to,
and they had to tie in with Prometheus because we've gotten through all of the good stuff, and we've jammed it all into. We've jammed an entire movie into half a movie in the first half.
Yep.
And that's the movie we all wanted to see. And that's the movie they put in the trailers. And then, because the studio says you need to tie it to Prometheus, okay, we've done that. Now we'll switch gears and we'll tie it to Prometheus. And now it's crap. It's like, and this is the movie we didn't want to see. So,
what you could have done is part of what made Aliens work is that there was a gap between the exposure of the aliens with the colonists and the arrival of the Marines. There's this.
There has to be a buildup.
Blackout, right? We don't know what happened,
exactly.
And we find what they could have done is just had two groups have a couple of the teenagers go up there to do this big raid for supplies and energy, and show that how it is and how they disrupt this system, and the facehuggers get out. And show all of them go down from these facehuggers. And now the rest of the crew is like, I can't get a hold of these guys. Right. Nothing happened. They have the tickets. They have something that we have to get. So we have to go up there and have them go up there. And of course, when they're there, the facehuggers are no longer there. And the guys are just kind of waking up. And now there's that blackout area where you don't have to rush through it, because that's the problem they run into. It's like the second it's on there, well, we have to kill this person so put a gap, make a gap in there and keep the information divvied up so that we can get it, because that is horrific, Anyway, I was just thinking out loud of one way to solve it. You could have had Team A gets up there and all goes down, and then Team B comes up, soon after, within days, and finds them, and you can get multiple chest bursters all at once.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
That would have been pretty gruesome.
I'm going to take this moment here now to again reiterate, this is going to be a heavy spoiler stream. I've amended the title to include heavy spoilers now, something that was an oversight. Like, I included it in the description, but I watch YouTube. I never read the description. Why am I expecting other people to read the description? Exactly. It should have been in the title. Apologies if that ruined anything for anyone. We've been fairly consistent about mentioning the fact that this is going to be heavy spoilers, so I do hope that we've avoided ruining anything for anyone that was not expecting the spoilers.
Yeah.
So now it says in the title, heavy spoilers. It literally says something completely different. Alien Romulus, heavy spoilers, ... when you see it on YouTube. So the whole thing is there. Hopefully that will help people avoid that issue.
Why don't since we're in the middle of dissecting things, why don't we talk about the outstanding part of the film as far as acting goes with Andy, and then we can fix the film like Doug and I did after we watched it.
Okay. Well, I also want to ask Doug about Heroine's Labyrinth.
Oh yes,
and
good idea.
I also want to pitch maybe another conversation with Doug about Heroine's Labyrinth. Maybe at a later date. Maybe we can just have the conversation here. I don't know if I have enough worked out to be able to actually have a full conversation about it, but we can.
Oh, no worries.
So, what we liked about Andy, just an absolute brilliant performance all around. I feel like of all of the cast members, he probably needed and likely received the least direction. I think that he was, I mean, it's just a really fantastic character. It's in the context of the world, in the context of androids or synthetic individuals, it's very
I prefer the term artificial person.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of artificial people, it was very okay, much like Alien 3. And the quote that I mentioned earlier, I heard, do me a favor, disconnect me, I can be reworked. I'll never be top of the line again. I'd rather be nothing. It indicates a level of emotion that the synthetics are able to achieve. I'm calling them synthetics because Blade Runner. But I feel like there's even another nod to Blade Runner when they say, you know, when they're going to the planet they want to retire on, and they're like, well, it's not a company town. They'll hunt down the synthetics. And it's like, well, okay, that's kind of sort of a nod to Blade Runner.
Sure.
Anyway, that gives us a sort of a nod toward the emotional state of these synthetic individuals, that they're able and capable of having, you know, self-reflection and self-sovereignty, and they're able to process emotion. And I feel that Andy just really took that and really went to the next level.
And it's an interesting dichotomy too, because they outright say he doesn't care.
Yes.
Right.
And that's the expectation. The expectation across the board is that they can't feel, there's no emotion.
Right.
But Bishop shows us that we're wrong in Alien 3 in a very intimate scene with Ripley. Yeah. And then Andy takes that and just absolutely runs with it. Right. And I feel like now he's still untrustworthy, as we have come to learn androids are in the world of Alien.
Because they can be overwritten.
Right. Because of the directives that they're issued.
Yeah.
But in this film, it shows that there is a participatory element in that, because at the close to the end, when Rain sits him down and says, I have a new directive for you. Do what's best for us. And he pauses and goes, updated, and it's, you know, he actually implements it. We have new people watching. Heavy spoilers. It's in the title. We're going to ruin this for you. If you don't want it ruined, I would please ask you to click away. I don't want to be responsible for ruining your movie-going experience. So when he says, you know, updated, that's an indication that, like, there's a participatory element here, right? So, like, Ash and Bishop and Call and David, they all had to participate in those decisions, or at least in the directives that they were issued, right? Maybe not, maybe, I don't know, because there was really no choice that Andy could make while he had Rook's programming. Because that was more of an aggressive takeover. There was something about Andy, whether it was because he was an earlier model, because he was a damaged model. There's something about him that allowed him to be participatory in that decision making, and I really liked that. And I could probably stop there. Like, there's specifically with Andy, so much new information regarding androids, synthetics, artificial people, and what a brilliant actor. Stole the show. Really, every scene that he was in, really, really, really liked.
He's the only character that I didn't have to sit and try and make an effort to recall his name. And, yes. And obviously I can't even do that with three of them or two of them.
Yeah,
Three of
like
them.
what was dude's name? Dude with
Dude
the plan.
number 1 and dude number 2. I don't know.
Yep, it's dude with a plan. Dude with the plan's jerk cousin.
And
the guy with the bad accent.
Burster. Huh?
The guy with the bad accent.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There's something in the water.
Right.
I know there's just
There's
something in the water.
Yeah. It's like, where are you from? Space Boston?
The actor who plays Andy, his name is David Johnson, and I couldn't agree more that he.
Watch this kid, man. He's gonna be.
Yeah, that he was one of the bright points. He played a very
understated. He was
like,
understated.
Understated, overly submissive in the beginning, which actually made you sympathize with him. And then he took on kind of a slightly menacing role when you realize that once he plugged into the new interface, that there's a new directive. I actually thought that was a pretty clever way to revitalize the character suddenly and give him this new direction. And then he becomes kind of oddly knowledgeable. And he seems to be helping the crew and advising them in a helpful way, but you never get comfortable with him doing that.
Nope,
you just never know when that's going to switch, you know?
Yep.
And then she goes and asks him, "What's your directive? Do what's best for the company." You know, and just like BG says, even they always tell you like it is, even when they're lying to you in the Alien franchise. And yes, 100%. You know that he has his own agenda. It's obvious what it is. It could have been, again, another missed opportunity because they had to tie it in with the stupid black goo junk.
With the stupid what?
With the stupid black goo junk.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Stupidity. Like, it's obvious what he's doing because, like, okay, he goes back and he talks with Ash, and they don't show what Ash tells him, but you know. And because Ash just, Rook just gave you an exposition dump, and that totally took you out of the. Why would he give you a description of what the whole? Why would he give these random guys who just came onto the station trespassing an entire description of the project that the entire station was there for in the first place? Makes no sense. And anyway, it could have been done a lot better if they had held that at least until the end of the film and made you wonder what the instructions were that Rook gave to Andy the whole time. Because when he turns around and says, "Do what's best for the company," it's like, well, duh. Yeah, I know. Of course, that's what you're going to do.
But he seemed like he had competing directives because there was obviously multiple opportunities he could have absolutely advised them to their destruction or capture.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The reason he's going along with them is to make sure, not because he cares for them personally as far as the company directive goes, but because he's trying to make sure that he has a buffer to get the goo from one end of the station to the other, where he can get on the ship and take it back down to the colony. At least that's what I drew from it. Is like he's the reason he's trying to get these people safely from one end to the other is not because. But that doesn't make much sense either, because the implication was he could have walked through all the facehuggers without triggering him because he's an android. And so why doesn't he just, again, like you were saying, Doug, why doesn't he just grab the experiment, leave them to their fate, and go and commandeer the ship himself? Ash already had it. Ash already had it wired for remote control. Why doesn't he do it that way? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I actually thought he was going to be more menacing when the new program took over, the new directive. I thought we were going to get Ash Part 2 there, where he's becoming openly antagonistic to his friends. But they went with kind of that mixed space for him, where he's now suddenly in control in a different way. He's not submissive. He's decisive. He's knowledgeable. And advising, though, he was still advising the crew in a semi-good way. Like I felt like he was. I felt like he was still giving them good advice.
Yeah,
sure. Here's how you do this. You turn up the heat. You do this. I'm like, oh, those are all great plans. So I was like, oh, so he is helping. So I felt they weren't clear about what happened there, but that obviously doesn't take anything away from the actor. The actor.
I agree that there was a lack of clarity. In the moment when I was watching the film, I do remember trying to reason out, well, why isn't he just taking the goo and hightailing it out of there himself? Like, he could totally just grab it and walk away. The reason, and this is not explicitly stated at all, this was me speculating in the moment that I was watching the movie. I just assumed that because it was just a conflict in programming, it was conflict in directive. Like, he may have been given a new directive, but it didn't overwrite the old directive. So now they're in conflict. So he has to do what's best for Rain and also what's best for the company. So that's kind of how I put it together in the moment that I was watching. But I don't know if that's reasonable. I don't know if that's trying to be communicated. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. They never really explicitly state it.
But she asks him outright, "What's your directive now?"
And he says to do what's best for the company. But
so
at that point, he had already had time to sort of grow into that new directive. So it could have been like, and again, this is stuff that I thought about in the moment, in like the flash that it took place, and it's not great. It's not airtight. And
this is the difference between when you're writing a screenplay. This is the difference between trusting your audience and having the actual reason in the script without telling them, and forcing the audience to fill in the gaps because you're not telling them.
Yeah. I mean, there is a big difference between those two.
Well, but the key is, from a writing standpoint, the author needs to know. And,
exactly. Which you get the impression they don't.
Right. Part of what makes a scene work or not, or a chapter in a book work or not, is if you sense as the reader or the viewer that there is a pattern. I might not understand it, but clearly there's a pattern here. And then upon multiple viewings, that pattern holds up and you understand more and more about what. But the writer has to have, I call that functionality. And functionality is one of the key aspects. And I think that's one of the biggest things missing from a lot of modern films. They're not concerned with the functionality of the world. They're concerned with shot by shot.
Right. There has to be an underlying
logic. It breaks down when you
consistency.
analyze it.
Yeah. There has to be an underlying logic and consistency to the sequence of events that, even if it's not explicitly told to the audience, that's how the world functions. It's how the characters are navigating it. And the audience will pick up on that. And they'll pick up on it when it's not there too, which is why I'm sitting there throughout most of Romulus saying, okay, why is the station here in the first place? And okay, why is it only a 10-minute chest burster? And okay, why is Rook telling them the plan in the first place? And okay, like all of these little things that scratch the back of your head and take you out of the film because they don't quite make sense. They happen because they need to happen for the plot. They don't happen because that's the way the world works.
But see, that's the writer's job to overcome that.
Exactly.
Like I said, you said like the 10-minute chest burster. What should have happened is they turn in the script and another writer's like, how much time has passed between this and that?
I love how you just have a pen and a piece of paper just standing there at the ready. Like your prop department is fantastic.
No, what I mean is, like, I'm imagining as if I'm holding the whole script.
Right.
And I'm like writing notes in the margin. One of my questions would be like, hey, how much time has gone by from when this thing attached itself to when this thing burst? And if the screenwriter's like about 10 minutes, maybe 20, I'd be like, well, that's not going to work. You're going to have to rewrite the scene. The scene has to be rewritten to be consistent. And
I think maybe in writing that scene, they felt like it was happening faster than it actually was, but because they were constantly hopping back and forth, it really undermined the timing. That's my view. I mean, it could have been that they just couldn't see. They couldn't see what they had done, unfortunately, and didn't really know how long it actually was taking until they filmed it.
But those are factors that, like, so even in, like, when I'm writing Faraway Bird or the book I'm writing now, even in the writers groups, I can't tell you how astute writers are or readers are. They're like, how much time has taken place? How much is it? It was just snowing outside. Now it's sunny. How much? It has been 3 months. And then you're like, oh man, I cut out all those chapters and now it looks like it went from winter to summer. Shit, I got to fix that. So that's part of the job of storytelling. You got to line all that up. And what I'm trying to say is they're not really doing that.
Right.
And I don't, and now I can be forgiving sometimes, but other times I'm like, you're skimping on the important stuff because we're not seeing that what happened to Cain is what happened to this lady, the girl in this one. it seems rushed, and enough to undermine the tension in the scene. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, even at the most basic levels of writing, these kind of questions are asked, but they're not asked when you're rushing or if you don't care. And both of those are not good signs.
Yeah, I agree. Or, could be negative studio involvement, budget cuts, could be any number of negative things.
And those are valid alternatives.
But it's also something that, like, if you are faced with a budget cut, if you are faced with that sort of thing, then you should really well be aware of what's happening in your script, and you should be able to make those edits. Unfortunate that they may be, you should be able to make them on the fly, or at least mitigate them.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, I can actually live with a 10-minute chest burster scene much better than the engineer at the end.
Oh my gosh!
I
noticed we have avoided talking about this. Are we all trying to excise it from our memory?
Possibly. I want to remind everyone:
not horrific in a good way.
Spoilers, heavy spoilers. This is we're talking about the end of the film. It's. But yeah, if you don't want any spoilers, then please do click away and come back to watch after you've seen the movie. We'll be discussing heavy spoilers. So yeah, that last bit of the movie, everyone saw it coming. The second that we knew that she was pregnant, we knew exactly what was going to happen. I have so many issues with this. Why did she inject herself with the black goo? She had no idea what it would do. She wasn't a part of that conversation.
She was supposed to be bleeding out. She had
no idea what that black goo would do, and she just, for no reason, injects herself with it. Oh, that starts the beginning of the ridiculous end to this film.
So, during COVID-19, there's a lot of pushback on the vaccine. Obviously, it became a politicized issue, blah, 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 blah. One of the demographics of people that were very leery of the vaccine were pregnant mothers. And it didn't matter their political leanings. They were kind of like, look, I'm just pregnant.
For obvious reasons.
They're like, I'm pregnant. And that's in the real world with a vaccine, which is, a reasonable thing to take. A pregnant mother with black alien goo being like, let's see what happens. I just don't buy it.
I completely agree. It's like,
made
what?
No sense.
And
again, something that happened
she
because
was there a party to was we're going to get you into cryosleep. We're going to get you the help you need. That was the conversation that she was a party to. She had no idea about the black goo. She didn't even know what they were handing to her when they handed it to her to go, like, here, take this, get on the ship. Yeah, she looks at it and then just sticks it in her neck. Like, no.
Yet another thing that happens
something that looks like that viscous and that opaque. Even if my doctor tells me to do it, if he hands me if he hands me something like that and says, here, you can, inject this and it's going to make you a superhuman, I'm going to look at it and go, you've got to be out of your mind. Like, I need tests. I need information. I need data. Like, I'm very much on board with doing what my doctor tells me to, but this looks a little dangerous.
Well, and that's the kind of thinking of a dude or a normal person who's just worried about their own biological safety. A pregnant mother's got 2 layers of that to think about. She might be cool with it, but it's an embryo, it's a fetus. I don't know. So it was especially odd for her to take the risk versus anyone else. And like you said, even you were like, I don't even know if I would do it just for me. So it was a hard sell. Black goo, at least make it lipstick red. Make it look attractive.
Right.
Black goo is the least likely thing I would inject into myself.
But I think they like you guys had mentioned previously, it had to be tied into Prometheus. It had to be tied into Covenant. So they made it this.
That was the mistake.
And it's not uninteresting. It's not an uninteresting progression in this particular aspect of the alien universe. Manufacturing some sort of serum based on a super creature in the wild of space that you want to help you want to kickstart human evolution with. It's not a terrible idea. But man, like when it was telegraphed from a billion years away. You saw she was pregnant, you knew what was coming, you saw the black goo and you went, there it is, and you knew exactly how it was going to go. And to be very truthful, I think that if the creature did not look as goofy as it did,
that was bad too.
it would have not caused like this individual in the chat here. I actually know him. He's a friend of mine, and he went to see it and said that there was like audible laughter in their theater when they finally revealed the hybrid, like actually in an alien movie, audible laughter in an alien movie. Like that's not the reaction that you're looking for. And it's just bad.
Well, and Sable and I went on opening night. We went Thursday night, and
Right.
Our crowd, the opening night crowd is going to be the most favorable. And I would say that our crowd was mostly positive toward this. Wouldn't you say, Sable?
Yeah, I would say.
I felt like they laughed at the joke. And they
even went along. They even went along with the most cringe part of Andy's role is when he's like, when he's back to original Andy, stuttering Andy, and he shoots and he shoots the xenomorph away from Rain and says, "Get away from her, you bitch." And
I hated that.
And I heard other people finish the line ahead of time, and I'm like, really? Because that's super cringe, man.
I was okay with the get away from her bit.
Yeah, if they stopped there,
that would have ended
right.
it would have been jarring. It would have been a little weird. I did not need the punctuation on it at the end.
They ruined the line by redoing it.
So bad.
I agree.
There's homage, and then there's homage, and then there's just absolute member berries, and that was a member berry, man.
Yeah, you can't say so. The reason the line worked the first time is because
this is now worse. Yes,
woman. You bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, there was a lot that went into that,
and it was to the queen.
Yes,
it's not just some random drone, man.
Right.
It's like
right. And the theme of protecting your young and motherhood that's found throughout the film, very, very important. Now, I would say, well, first of all, let's address Drew and Fudge. She says, I found the hybrid and resurrection already laughably bad, and this is now worse.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunately, yes, it is.
So Drew and Fudge, yes. I do think it's at least as bad because although it sounds like I liked Resurrection on the same. It's a guilty pleasure movie. It's something I'll watch at night once in a while. However, I hated that part. I will never watch it all the way to the end because I hate that ending. This is on par with that at least.
So think of the hybrid alien from Resurrection, and put an engineer's face on it.
But take away the muscular build of the engineer
and make it emaciated, and there you go. And it's
and nothing about it makes sense. It gestated quicker than an actual alien did. It nothing about it made sense.
He's like 10 feet tall within minutes of being alive.
Oh. Yeah. It takes a chest burster, I imagine in the context of the film, several hours to actually mature, right? Like, but then this thing is just like, out and up and grown. It was absolutely just ridiculous.
Like literally within 5 minutes.
So a couple things about the black goo. And Bacon, you said that you kind of like the premise and you feel like it's reasonable and even interesting that there's some sort of research being done, right?
Yeah, Bacon, who has not seen past the first 15 minutes of Prometheus, has not seen Covenant, so keep that in mind. But I know about the black goo, like I know of it. I've seen clips and I've seen the scenes, but like I feel like that could have been a very interesting progression in the way that it was handled. Like if it has to be a part of the universe, then it could have added something, I think.
So real quick, Mike, yes. The movie is clearly in the genre of horror, in the vein of Alien, 1979, and about 75% of the way into the movie, it shifts tonally, pace, and the feel of it. I mean, just what you feel like you're watching. And it moves in to try to explain Prometheus and introduces the black goo, and then the pregnant woman kicks in, and then she gets pregnant. She injects herself, and within minutes, she gives birth. Her entire biology changes from purely human to purely inhuman to giving birth to something that within minutes grows into a 10-foot tall basketball player with an engineer's face that begins hunting the lead character, and it doesn't work.
And mind you, she hasn't changed at all physically.
It could,
right? She's
a regular person.
It could, because like here's what here's what I was expecting, and it could.
Oh, real
I
quick,
think
Sable Phoenix. I'm sorry, we just had more people join. Heavy
super
spoilers.
heavy spoilers.
Yeah, heavy spoilers. If you don't want this ruined for you, then I would ask that you please click back on after you've already seen the movie. Otherwise, this is going to be ruined for you. We are discussing right now the end of the film, so please don't ruin the experience for yourself if you prefer to avoid spoilers.
Right.
Sorry about that.
It's not like The
Don't
Sixth
worry.
Sense, but still, if you like,
Right.
Yeah.
Although I will say that maybe we'll save you guys 2 hours of your life.
And someone else just clicked in, so I'm going to reiterate real quick. I'm sorry. Full of spoilers. We're talking about the end right now. If you don't want it ruined for yourself, then I would ask that you please click away. I do not want to be responsible for ruining the movie for you. If you are planning on going to see this, that is not something I want on my conscience. I take it very seriously. So if you're cool with spoilers, stick around. If you've seen the movie, stick around. If you are not cool with spoilers and you do not want it ruined, please do click away. Thank you for stopping by, though. All right, go ahead.
Yes.
So what actually happens is, she injects herself before they get back to the pods, and so Rain puts Sky. Is it Sky? Anyway, whatever her name is, pregnant girl, into the.
Did they call one Rain and the other Sky? Is that true?
I'm pretty.
I don't know.
No, K. No, it's K. It was K.
Okay.
So Sky.
Oh, okay. Thank
so
God.
Rain and K. That shows you how memorable the characters were. Anyway, so pregnant. So Rain sticks K into a cryotube and starts, stripping down to get into her cryotube, and just like the end of the first film and whatever. And then the alarm goes off saying that there's a biological anomaly or whatever, and cryosleep is aborted. So she goes and opens the pod, and Kay's sitting there with a belly 9 months pregnant size, and gives birth to a pod that's essentially an egg that you would think would have a face hugger inside it, sort of. It's a hybrid between that and the cocoon that the alien was in, pupating earlier in the film. And there's a ton of blood that comes out with it, and he's like, okay, well, she's dead, right? How did she survive that amount of blood loss with that pod or whatever tearing its way out of her? Anyway, and then as Rain is carrying it, it hatches into a engineer alien, and then 2 minutes later it's full grown and 10 feet tall, and it's really, really stupid. Anyway,
we were discussing
Someone
else just came in. I'm sorry. I'm going to be really sensitive about this part because I don't want to ruin it for anyone. But I mean, had some people stop in. Heavy spoilers. We're discussing it in the movie. Please do click away if you don't want it ruined. Thank you for stopping by. You can always come back and watch it after you've seen the film. But if you're sensitive to spoilers, this is definitely the wrong time to click over. Thank you.
What I was expecting and the way it could have worked, and I was actually dreading this, and this would have been way more horrific and in tone with Alien, the franchise, than what we actually got. I was expecting, like, when she pulled the cryotube, I was expecting the 9 months pregnant look, but I was expecting that a child-sized creature was going to tear its way out of the girl and stand up in the middle of the cryopod and turn around and at the sky or whatever. And that would have been incredibly gory, incredibly horrific. I was dreading that it was going to happen because I really didn't want to see a pregnant woman ripped apart. And it would have fit with the body horror and sexual themes of Alien horror. If they'd done that, then it wouldn't have landed with like a ton of bricks the way it did.
I also think that this was a grand undermining of the mother aspect
for sure
that this character inhabited, that in my view is calling back to Ripley as mother in Aliens, because we just had 2 more people join. We are talking about the end of the movie at this point. I do not want to have spoiling the movie on my conscience for you. So there we go. 2 people just left. Please do be aware. In the title, it says heavy spoilers. Thank you so much for stopping by, but we are absolutely in heavy spoiler territory. We actually have been for a while, but this is the end of the film, so it's going to ruin something for you. But when the cocoon, I guess, or when the egg emerges, her reaction is, get it away from me, which is not a motherly reaction. I completely understand it in the context of body horror, but I feel like that was it almost.
I don't know how she was I don't even know how she was still vocal and able to vocalize, because so much blood came, like that thing tore its way out of her and so much blood came out with it. She should have died. It almost
would have been better if it did kill her.
Yeah.
Because then there would have been no reaction. We wouldn't have had to constantly come back to her to just kind of see her dying, right? Like it did kill her, but it was a slow death. And it was something that we were constantly pulled back to.
And then for whatever reason, the engineer alien came back to eat her. I mean, I know what they were doing, because it did its little mouth tongue mouth thing.
Right.
And it was quote unquote nursing from her. Biting her blood, but it's
like eating the placenta,
or whatever. Yeah, I get what they were trying to do with that, but it did not. It was
not really effective, I don't think. We have more viewers here. I'm going to say again, we are talking about the end of the movie. If you want to avoid spoilers, I would thank you for stopping by, but ask that you click away and then come back later to see the stream once you've finished with the film.
And you know what? At the end of the day, the audiences filling in to watch this movie, they're not signing on to watch a new biological something that's tied into Prometheus.
Right.
And so the more time you spend on it, the more you're going to lose the audience that came in to see the face huggers, the chest bursters, the xenomorphs, and maybe even a queen alien, which we did not see in this film.
Right.
And I thought we were leading up toward, they had everything but, which is fine.
If a nascent queen alien had ripped its way out of K and stood up in the middle of that cryopod, that would have been a cool. That
would have been a far better way, I think.
Better, yeah.
Right. Or right. Let's say that the research hasn't completed on this black goo. Right. Let's say that it's the alien pod that Andy, due to his new programming, is forcing them to take aboard with them, and like the alien that they cut open the big chap from the original, and then maybe he wakes up at the end and comes after. Because, that's kind of what you're doing anyway, right? They get back to the cryopods, and then they're being attacked. Like 4 levers, 4 pillars. Like it's the same thing. It's just with this now ugly, ill-conceived creature instead of actually. I forget what I was saying. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to transition because I can't remember what I was saying. I will say this, that in this sequence, I think my favorite visual of the entire film was when Rain used the amniotic fluid in the egg to burn a hole in the bottom of the cargo.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was a combination of the dust spilling out at us as we were watching and seeing her dangling and seeing how close we were to the rings, and just that juxtaposition.
That was really good. You're right.
Really effective. It was also the beginning of the end for that ugly, dumb creature. So I probably like it well, but I think that visually, man, I loved all of the space shots that we got. Even the ascent of the ship initially after it left planet side and was going toward the station, going through all of the dust and the clouds, and then seeing the rings, really effective space imagery. I absolutely love it.
And they also, and it looked like ice rings, right? It looked like what you would want. And secondly, they did. Yeah, I saw that. And the other thing that I liked in the visual is on the edge of the ice rings, you had these large, iceberg-looking, kind of like it was a bunch of small ice, and then you had these larger, mountainous ice chunks on the edges.
Yeah.
I loved everything about it, and it was very flat, so it looked like a very specific plane of existence that this thing was moving toward. When it was dragging through the ice and exploding and disintegrating, I thought those were good shots. So, Bacon, I completely agree with you. That was a new look that was creative, and it had good impact visually.
Yeah. There's so much that they did do right with this film.
Yeah, there is. And I think
the visuals and the cinematography was one of them.
Ultimately, I hope that it makes as much money as it possibly can. I would like to still continue to get Alien films or films in the Alien.
Would you though?
I mean, look, I'm going to go see them if they keep making them, right?
Yeah,
so
well,
I have to say that,
on.
yes. Like, I know the track record has, like, we've had a really long tail of stinkers. I know that, but like, I still, like, with the exception of Prometheus and Covenant, I have seen all of the, chronologically correct Aliens.
So I just want to say, one of the things that made the Aliens franchise so scary is that the biology and the biological progression, the phases, the life stages of the alien seems so horrifically fixed in place and so like perfect that it was that's why he called it a perfect organism.
Yeah, perfect organism.
Right.
It's a perfect organism. There's no way out once you're in. And so then they started deviating from that, and they started making different, the alien on the dog, and it was a half dog alien. Then there was the human, half human alien. Then there was the black goo, and there was the little, snake thing, and then the giant octopus, and then the alien that pops out and is a xenomorph right away. And then Covenant one of them added spores. And I was like, what are you guys doing? The whole point was that this was a perfect organism.
Right.
Why are you rewriting? I don't know if you guys have seen Mozart. It's like, I can't rewrite what's perfect. That's what I feel like. Like, what are you doing? Stick with the brilliant, perfect, cold logic of the biology of this creature and come up with the story that works, that fits within this system. It shouldn't be that hard to do.
I completely agree. It's a matter of putting the xenomorph in its perfection as an organism in new situations, in new terrifying situations. You want to be able to use that perfection in order to bring different types of individuals in or bring different types of settings in to really ratchet up the stakes, right? Because first we're on the Nostromo. It's just a group of individual space truckers. Then in Aliens, we're on a colony, right? Then in Alien 3, we're on a planet. It's a prison planet. Like, you can, and all of these places are totally unrelated to Earth. Like, I don't want to say put an alien on Earth because I think that would actually not work. But like, you have to find ways to increase the stakes, but just keep the alien, keep the xenomorph where it's at. You've already said it's perfect across several movies now. So we don't really need you to try. Or if you're going to do something different, do like Kenner did. Give me a gorilla alien. Give me a scorpion alien. You know what I mean? Like, you could be a little bit inventive with it, but it's still going to go through that same gestational period. It still has the same biology. It's just different because it assimilates the DNA of the creature that it injects. So you can do that. Knock it off with humans, though. Okay, stop making it into a hybrid.
Yeah. It's already that's kind of the point.
Yeah,
though.
Exactly. And non Adderlane this is exactly what the comics did.
Yeah.
All of them were better than. Yes, completely agree. We were talking about the comics earlier.
And
there are many comics that Kenner included. There's actual Dark Horse comics. 100% agree. 100% agree.
The Dark Horse comics were great. Earth War was another one. One thing you were talking about how you do appreciate the idea that it's reasonable that they'd be researching this. What I guess my add-on to that is that I like that they're researching the aliens because that makes sense. I don't like the black goo. I don't think they would be researching in a way to splice as much. I just don't think they would. I think that the phase of research that they would be in is, what the hell do we have here? What the hell is this thing? I think that's step one of research, right? Burke says that those are worth millions to the bioweapons division. What I would like,
yes, that's like that's where the vast majority of human technology comes from. It comes from war and advancing. You make the good armor, then you make the weapon that beats the armor, then you make the armor that protects against. And it's an incremental arms race through the course of human history. That's where this should be. That's where this should land.
You know what I think would be a great Aliens, because I've asked myself the same thing. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it scary? What I would do? So I would have, if you do a little bit of research into Alien, the world, you've got like the 3-world empire, right? You've got, these different factions out there. Show a major battle on a moon like Titan, right? And show like a brute force. What does combat look with the 70s, 80s technology motif? Don't modernize it. Make it look bulky and hydraulic and analog. Make it look like that, and then show a large scale battle, and show that like the 3 Worlds Empire is losing Titan to this thing, and now they're desperate. They're like, what does the bioweapons division have? They're like, well, we have this one thing, but it's not really perfected yet. Show us how you would deploy this against a foreign army. Show us the army. Maybe they're in the trenches somewhere. Maybe they're in bunkers or underground subterranean situation, and show us how you would actually deploy these on a foreign force or an enemy position, and show us the xenomorph. And now you have combat. You'd have an actual standing army, not just a platoon, but a standing army dealing with this unknown biologic coming in. And then you would have to come into that space to push them off and get rid of this biological thing you've unleashed. I think you could create a real cool situation, keeping in line with the design of the world, the bioweapons division, the world building they've already done, and the creature as it is.
I completely agree with that. And imagine trusting your audience enough to present to them a sci-fi war epic film, and then halfway through the movie, the xenomorphs are involved. Dude, that would absolutely set word of mouth on fire. It would, if it was a well realized, well filmed, correctly acted and directed film. If all that is true, this would light wildfire from word of mouth. It would absolutely, it would probably be one of the highest grossing films ever, because people are going to want to see that, right?
Well, and you can
had Daredevil not Daredevil, Deadpool and Wolverine is the 8th grossing film ever, right? It's also, I think, the highest grossing R-rated film.
The highest grossing. Yeah.
But it was literally just something that the people wanted to see anyway. Like, you can do it. I'm losing my train of thought here. We've been going for 3 hours. I'm a little fuzzy at the moment. But
I hear you, man.
You really get there. You really could get there, I think.
The studio would never allow it, but if they were able to do that as a surprise, and it's like, oh, we're just going to market this as this new science fiction war movie, but then in the trailers indicate that it's also a horror film, and say nothing about aliens at all.
Right.
But then,
in this trailer, hint at the form language, right? You hint at
give it maybe a Giger-esque aesthetic in some point, but don't use the word alien in the title. Don't put any xenomorphs in it in the trailer, and make it a total surprise to the audience when they actually 2/3 through the film show the actual alien skull come up and everyone would go freaking.
Everyone would
nuts.
lose their minds.
The studios would never allow it. The studios would never allow it because the marketing department would be all over it.
Well, the bioweapons division will pay millions because this would have application in warfare, right?
Yeah.
So let's say they get a hold of this thing, and now you as a writer, this would be fun. What is the best way to employ these in warfare without hurting ourselves? You have to come up with this. Come up with some of those things, and then show an exhausted future expeditionary force on Titan, hunkered down, exhausted, supplies are running out, whatever. And then one of them gets hit with this parasite. They don't know what the hell this thing is. It's in, the med lab, they're studying it. And then, there's a sortie. They still have to conduct warfare opera. And then this thing comes off. You could do a chest burster scene. The thing gets loose. They assign a task force to find this thing, but now they still have to fight a war. And then this thing, a cocoon or a hive is being created somewhere nearby this expeditionary force. And now there's xenomorphs coming in. You would have the actual one-on-one combat with it. I can hear it in my head. The alien sound effect. Yeah, you could have the motion sensors. You could bring all of that back and have it get large scale. Have it get large scale. An entire army is being compromised because that's the whole point of the bioweapons division in the military, to use these things against an entire army.
And there's so many different directions you could go in with this. You could actually, I think, legitimately pull off the human. At the moment, I just saw people join. Sorry. We're speculating right now. We're speculating on what could have been, or maybe what should have been in the Alien franchise. Who knows? We could slide back and forth into and out of spoiler territory. So just be aware that if you want to see the movie, this is a heavy spoiler review. It's a heavy spoiler discussion. Currently, we're not talking about the film. We're just speculating, but there's no guarantee that we're not going to go back to spoiler territory. So if you don't want it ruined, I would prefer not to ruin it for you. I don't want that on my conscience. Please do click away. Thank you for stopping by, but you can come on back and see once you've gotten the movie watched. But you could actually 100% do the human xenomorph hybrid that you want to do, right? Because let's say that the bioweapons division created this sort of like superhero-like super soldier serum, and you go and inject a guy, and he and then you see he's got the rib cage and the exoskeleton, maybe his head elongates a little bit, but don't do it in a really stupid looking way. You have to do this you have to be able to nail this visually. This is going to have to go through iteration. This is going to have to go through an approval process. But then you can transition genres halfway through the film. You can say sci-fi action, sci-fi action, sci-fi action, sci-fi horror, because now this thing is going to turn on the army that it used to be a member of, and they have no idea how to stop it. And maybe it's more intelligent. Maybe it can think like a human. Maybe because it was a previously existing soldier, it remembers things. So it's not mindless. So it knows where to go. Maybe it can, use its own blood to get into and out of places that it shouldn't be. You could really make this a really good, super effective genre transition, but it's never going to happen. So here we
all
are.
I'm trying to say is the way they've treated research in the films is to modify the alien. What I was trying to say is it might be interesting to show them working the research division on how to apply what they already have in warfare.
It's supposed to be a perfect organism.
Right. It's the perfect
organism. Just take it as it is, perfection, and
just use it because it's already been designed as a bioweapon.
Gotcha.
That's the whole thing that they found in the space jockey crash ship in the first place. The derelict of a bioweapon.
That's
why it had a warning message instead of a distress call.
And then maybe, it gets off the world that they, there's the expeditionary force that they're using it on. But now we're hearing reports it's over on another world, what do we do? did we start the apocalypse with this this plan? Because obviously if it gets to Earth, that's game over. So anyway, I just thought it'd be cool to show large scale macro warfare circumstances where these things are used. And like Jurassic Park, they lose control of the of what they created. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that's the whole point, is that they are messing around with stuff that they can't control.
Yeah, and it would just be fun to see how. And if I bet if we put our heads together and really thought about it, we could come up with some cool ways to how would we apply this in warfare? What do we do? We'd have to train. You'd have to get an egg out there somehow. How do you do that?
You wouldn't use it in an actual combat scenario, though. You'd smuggle it onto the enemy's homeworld.
Yeah, you'd have to get it there. So but then, assuming that we could come up with a very smooth, tactical, procedural way to deploy this or to apply it in a military fashion. Now it's just fun to show the biology of this thing unfolding nearby a huge number of human beings. Armies, that's why disease is so dangerous in war, because you got all these people in close quarters. So, I think it'd be fun to just let that scenario play out in the most horrific way. And then we're getting reports that we didn't put it on this other world? You know, did somebody leave?
Yeah.
You know, was there a was there a C-130 that left?
We didn't think about refugees. Who would have thought?
Exactly.
Oh no.
Yeah, maybe there's like a whole bunch of these people
consequences.
maybe there's a whole bunch of these people with face huggers. So they're like, let's get them all out of here. Let's ship them over there. There's a medical facility. Now, you know, so I'm just saying, like, I think that'd be a fun kind of in character new look for aliens. That'd be fun.
So 12 people here now. I'm going to let them know. We're just speculating at the moment. Might slide back and forth into spoilers. We've already pretty much discussed everything in the movie. Oh, no, we haven't. I actually want to bring up a question. We're going to get into spoilers. If you don't want anything spoiled, don't want it on my conscience anyway, please do click away and come back after you've seen the movie. But thank you for stopping by. Theme. What do we think the theme of the movie is? I have a very clear idea of what I think it is.
It's so messy.
It's messy, but I think that there's a clearly identifiable theme. I think that the theme is family. It's the family that you choose instead
the found
of
family
you come from. But yeah, but it's very much. I think it's very much family. There's a cousin. There is a brother. You know, she refers to Andy as her brother. There is a mother. There's a brother and a sister. So like with all of those,
they're not brother and sister. The lead guy is actually the one who knocked up the pregnant girl.
I thought that it was his sister, and that's why they live together.
No, they
I think Doug's looking.
Was it?
I think that they were. Yeah, I think that they were related brother and sister. I think the only mother, or the only. Pardon me. Give me a minute. I don't think we know who got her pregnant because there's a moment in the film where she says it doesn't matter, some idiot. It was just some.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's just some asshole.
So I'm fairly certain that they're brothers. So like with all of those familial connections, also, you know, the way the end of the movie goes, the way Andy is, I really feel like the theme of the movie, or rather I interpret the theme of the movie to be family. It does get a little bit messy from there. Yeah. It doesn't really speak to the theme very often, but it's a horror movie, so it doesn't really have to. We can get into that. It might not really have to, but I think that it strongly starts off as a family-themed film.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's about family. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's
like every Fast and
Furious in space.
Yeah, Fast and the Furious in space.
Yeah,
every Fast and the Furious movie is about family.
Yeah. All right. You know what? I think that we can probably end there on that note, unless you guys have something else to say. We've been going for over 3 hours. I have things to do. I'm sure that you both also have things to do. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
I would love to do this again for future films. I do not want to step on any toes, so I don't want to sort of develop this channel in the direction that Heath has gone. I want to exist independent.
Well, Heath likes to go with what he calls evergreen movies, older pre-existing movies. So I think if we're looking at beloved franchises, new efforts.
Well, here's the thing with that though. Like I get out to see film very infrequently.
Yes.
Like I expect the next movie I'm able to see this year is probably going to be Nosferatu, which isn't until December, Christmas time. So I also know that Heath is probably going to want to discuss that because they've discussed the old one on his channel.
True.
So I would actually probably rely on older films. That's a conversation for him and I to have, though. We don't have to have that conversation here.
Yeah, and we could figure out maybe a different approach or a different format, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You are very welcome, Mike. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Yeah, I think that this is the beginning of a new format for the channel. I would hope if you two would like to continue to participate. I loved this conversation.
Yes,
it was fantastic. The insights, the passion was really great. As you both know, I come from film, so it's a little bit more of an easy topic for me to discuss readily. So I'm very happy to, like, I don't have to put anything together to talk about film, right? Like I know RPGs, but I really got to kind of, with the way I want to talk about them, I have to really kind of be very methodical and draw things up and put things together well. And even then, sometimes I'm not really exactly on the dot. But with film, it comes like second nature. It's
Well, and this was cool too because there is an RPG tie-in with the
Yeah,
role-playing
yeah.
game. So
and I think maybe
If
you
we
know
could
maybe
even
that's
get
something
into
that I do.
that.
Maybe we go ahead and like I don't know. Maybe we want to do like a live play or something of the Alien RPG. Like we
that
could
would
do
be fun,
that, right?
I think that would be fun.
All right. Well, let's
We could, and they could have
maybe get
used
that
the
ball
Alien
rolling.
RPG. They could have. Doug and I talked about this too. They could have used the Alien RPG to fix the film as well. And we
Yeah,
could
that would-
even discuss that.
Hey, maybe that's something we could do. We could be like,
Yeah.
hey, this
That's
is
what
how
I'm
we
saying.
picked
When I
it,
read
and
the
we're gonna
core
role play it.
rule book, my imagination went wild because I thought of all sorts of scenarios. And I was like, they're throwing the whole world out and just trying to do like they're trying to recapture the scare of Alien or the genre change of Aliens. It's and they've gone in weird directions, but it's like you spend all these films going in weird directions. There's an entire world you should be researching that you can work in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
All right. I'm gonna end it here. When I click end, it doesn't ever end immediately. So they're gonna be looking at our faces until it actually does end. But I'm gonna click it here. Thank you, Drew and Fuzz. Thank you, Showman Studios, Mike M, BGD, Anon, everyone who showed Mike M. Thank you, everyone who showed up and watched. I really hope I didn't spoil it for anyone who didn't want it spoiled. And we'll catch you tomorrow. Jax is returning tomorrow, so I'll be live streaming with them at around 4:30 Eastern. So I will see you all then. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thanks for having us, James. This was awesome.
For sure.
You got it. I'm excited to have you back. So we'll see you all
Very
later.
cool.